get going.
We're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regular City Council virtual meeting of August the 3rd. It is now 8 p.m. and we will begin and call the meeting to order. If you could, would everyone please join me in doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, for the record, Madam City Clerk, we do have a quorum, correct? Would you do a roll call first, please?
Sure. Mayor Adams,
Present.
Councilmember Harrison,
Present.
Councilmember Gardner, Councilmember Esteve.
Hello.
Councilmember Wolfley,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bafo,
Present.
City Clerk,
Councilmember Ndebumadu.
Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir. Does Councilmember Gardner?
this is Councilmember Gardner.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Mayor, we do have a full quorum.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate everyone joining us this evening, both our guests for this evening as well as our staff and our community. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we will move on to the citizen participation, and I will turn that over to the City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. So for this evening, we only have one comment under citizen participation. And this is from Pauline Markward, the Executive Director of the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Mayor Adams, City Council members and staff. Thank you for your support of the Bowie COVID-19 Recovery Assistance Program, which will benefit the local Bowie business community. The Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce plays a crucial role in providing education and connecting businesses to the resources. Our goal is to use this generous contribution we will receive through the Bowie COVID-19 Recovery Assistance Program to provide meaningful and quantifiable COVID-19 relief for existing small and micro businesses registered in the city of Bowie by making accessible resources that can ultimately stabilize and sustain business operations that have experienced interruption related to the ongoing pandemic. We will achieve this goal by establishing a business resource center to provide consultation services and hands-on support to local micro businesses currently impacted by COVID-19. As a member of the Greater Bowie business community, the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce is open for your business. We recognize the value added of businesses to the overall quality of life and contribution to the tax base of the city. The Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce greatly appreciates your support of the business community. Again, thank you for entrusting and providing us with resources to outreach to the Bowie business community and assist them with COVID-19 relief counseling, which is now more important than ever. And that is the only
Thank you, City Clerk.
Mhm.
Okay. At this point, we will move on to presentations. I'd like to read first Proclamation P9-20, and that's a proclamation honoring the memory of Representative John Lewis. Whereas the City Council mourns the passing of John Lewis, an American hero, an indomitable pillar of the civil rights movements, and celebrates his life, achievements, and sacrifices. And whereas John Lewis was the last surviving member of the Big Six, leaders of the 1960s civil rights movement, and whereas John Lewis bravely led protesters across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama during the events of Bloody Sunday and endured a brutal beating by local law enforcement, contributing to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And whereas John Lewis served on the City of Atlanta's council for 5 years, where he advocated tirelessly to preserve neighborhoods and promote ethics in government. And whereas John Lewis served as Georgia's 5th congressional district representative for over 30 years and 17 terms, further advocating to champion civil liberties and social justice for all Americans, but most especially African Americans who have historically been denied those rights. And whereas the council recognizes John Lewis's lifelong commitment to affirming the ideals of justice, equity, and opportunity for everyone in the nation, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, hereby recognizes the many accomplishments of the Honorable John Lewis and honors his memory on this day. Introduced and passed by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland at a regular meeting on August 3rd, 2020. The next proclamation I'd like to read is Proclamation number P10-20. And this is in recognition of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, was signed into law 30 years ago on July 26, 1990, as one of the most comprehensive pieces of civil rights legislation, declaring equality for all those with disabilities. And whereas the ADA prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including employment, education, transportation, and public accommodations. And whereas the ADA has expanded opportunities for individuals with disabilities by reducing barriers, changing perceptions, and increasing full participation in community activities. Life. And whereas we celebrate the progress that has been made over the past 30 years by reaffirming the principles of equality and inclusion for all. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, hereby recognizes and celebrates the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act and commits to continue to work to build up a truly inclusive community, providing an enhanced quality of life for all. Introduced and passed by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, at the regular meeting on August 3rd, 2020. Thank you. At this time, we will move to our city boards and committees. Do we have any presentations?
No,
I don't see them. Okay. Any council announcements at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Ingrid.
City Council Member Harrison, please go right ahead.
Yes, good evening. I was asked by the Green team to just share some acts of green, and I'll just share a couple, but they did share many of them with me and asked that I share them with the residents. So I'll just share 3 of them. And one is to turn off your lights. On average, we consume about 1,200 watts of energy per year. And we want to be intentional about energy usage, and that can go a long way. The second one is go for a walk. If we all travel by foot instead of by car for just 5% of our outings, we save about 2.6 gigatons of carbon dioxide by 2050. Be water conscious. An average 10-minute shower wastes about 20 to 25 gallons of water. So try to keep your lather time to 4 minutes. And then last but not least, eat a plant-rich diet. A study from the Environmental Working Group shows that red meat is responsible for 10 to 40 times as many greenhouse gas emissions as vegetables and grains. And the last thing I do want to remind everyone is to please wear your mask inside all public places and wherever you cannot social distance. It's very, very important. Our COVID numbers are rising, so we want to keep those down as much as possible so we don't have to go back into a quarantine situation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Member Harrison. Any other comments from any or announcements from any of the council members?
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
Just so folks are aware, I got this about 12 minutes ago, or I would have brought it up sooner with folks. I received a number of complaints from people about a large party that was held actually in my neighborhood, Northridge, a few days ago. Apparently it was a gathering of some 50 people at a person's home. As a lot of folks may be aware, family gatherings are the #1 cause of COVID spread right now in the state of Maryland, followed by house parties, followed by outdoor public gatherings. Currently, and someone can jump in if I'm wrong, but as of August the 1st, the county executive has stated that gatherings over 50 are prohibited. So if you're having a family event or going to a large party, over 50 is prohibited. And there are significant fines that can be applied to folks who do not comply with this. So it's very important. We're still in a pandemic. If you're going to be in a tight crowd of folks, you can't have more than 50 in your home. It's encouraged you wear masks everywhere you go, like Councilwoman Harrison said. And it's also required that you wear masks outdoors if social distancing is not possible. So just wanted to remind everyone of that.
Thank you, Council Member. And for just an FYI, that concern I did forward on to Chief Nesky. So we are taking a look at that as well. Hey, thank you so very much. Are there any other council members who would like to have an announcement or anything at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, managers report.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see anything listed. Do we have a city manager's report this evening?
I certainly do. What I'd like to talk about tomorrow, which is the tropical storm will be coming to Bowie. There are some things that actions we've taken already, including we're going to be closing facilities, city facilities tomorrow. The winds are scheduled to be between 40 and 70 miles an hour, gusting to that. We canceled trash collection and notified all the residents to that effect. And we've scheduled our crews to be ready to react either during and after the tropical storm. I've asked Lee Cornwell to call in this session so he can give a little bit more thorough briefing to the council about our preparations for tomorrow. Lee, chime in, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lott, and good evening, Mayor and City Council, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to brief you out on, which is now Hurricane Isaias. This storm recently had been upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane about within the last hour. The current location is 50 miles southeast of Charleston, South Carolina, and is heading northeast at 16 miles per hour. Impact in Maryland is expected to be later tonight or early Tuesday morning. We should start seeing an increase in wind speeds and associated rain with that. Tropical storm warning is in effect for Bowie and Prince George's County at this time. Unfortunately for this storm, there is a threat for all 4 elements of a tropical storm, which is rain, flooding, high wind damage, and tornadoes. Tropical force winds starting late tonight are possible with gusts up to 50 miles per hour and will last through tomorrow afternoon. The highest impact of this storm is expected to be between 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. These gusts of winds will cause downed trees, power lines down, debris, and damage from unsecured wind-blown objects. Heavy rains expected to begin after midnight, again with the heaviest amount of rains between 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. Expected total of rainfall is expected to be between 3 and 6 inches, with isolated areas of up to 8 inches. Flash flooding is possible, actually it's expected due to storm drains being overrun with the rain coming down so fast. It's just simply nowhere for the rain to go. Isolated tornadoes are possible, but at this time, the main impact for possible tornadoes remains south and east of us, eastern Charles County, Calvert County, and northern St. Mary's County. However, we are constantly watching this storm. Anything could happen to this storm once it hits land. It's already shifted west a little bit, and that's not good for the city of Bowie. If it shifts any more west, the higher the amounts of impact will occur. We've been in constant contact with our stakeholders and our partners at NEMA, the National Weather Service, and through the county with conference calls constantly. Actions that we've taken here in the county, we've put out an aggressive communications plan to push out preparation information to the public, which includes things like having enough food, medications, gas in your cars, not to run your generators in enclosed areas, secure all your lightweight objects outside your home, and try to help the city out. If there's a storm drain near your house, do your best to try to clean that out and help us out. Our staff has been out and about today checking those storm drains to make sure they are clear, but help us out by checking those storm drains for us. And finally, make sure that your cell phones are up and charged. As Mr. Lott has already alluded to, we have closed all of our city facilities to the public. Of course, all staff will still report or be teleworking. And of course, no trash or recycle collections will be done tomorrow. It's just safe for the staff not to go out in 60-mile-an-hour winds. We will have staff on duty after midnight to respond to any reported down trees, road closures, and et cetera. And our emergency operations center will be up and functioning in a partial activation in a virtual operational posture to coordinate all of our resources and staff through this event. And finally, we have plans in place in case of needed evacuations. And as always, we'll continue to monitor this event and push out information to the public as the need arises. With that, that's all I have, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
I think I'd like to just make a comment, and I think everyone's aware. Firstly, thank you so very much for all the information you've been pushing out to us all day today, and having been able to sit in on a couple of those conference calls you were on. I do have to say you represent the city extremely well. I thought you bring up points that show a leadership from our municipality for others as well. So I want to thank you with that. If you could, though, one little thing. Could you inform people of what number they should dial if they have a general issue, things that are down, versus a true emergency, if you don't mind?
Stand by 1 second.
No problem. But thank you, Lee, because again, for those who may not have been on some of the call, Lee kind of set the pace and the tone for making sure municipalities understood some of the things we should be doing. So again, I'm extremely appreciative of what you've done. Go ahead, Lee.
Well, I got to say, I appreciate the thank yous and the nice, kind words that you had, Mr. Mayor. And I couldn't do it without my emergency operations staff. I mean, Una Cooper,
Excellent.
who pushes out all of the information, and Stephanie Robinson, who is my right hand in the Emergency Operations Center, along with the EOC representatives from Community Services and Public Works. I could not do it without their support, but I thank you for your kind words. If someone has, of course, if they have an emergency, they are to dial 911. If it's a non-emergency related type of concern, or to report a tree down or a debris in the road or possible flooding in the area where there is not a life-threatening emergency, you can call our Police Communication Center at 240-544-5700. Again, that's 240-544-5700.
Hey, thank you, Lee. Back to you, City Manager.
Lee, I actually have a couple questions, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Let me also first off start by thanking you and Stephanie, not just for the updates throughout today, but during this COVID period as well. You guys have kept us informed, allowing us to also keep our residents informed. I've gotten 3 emails from District 3 residents within this time that I just want to ask you, because I'm sure they're watching. The first is specifically related to major streets, specifically in District 3. What are the plans and resources do we have as a city to kind of keep those main thoroughways open?
Well, as I said, we have staff starting right after midnight to handle any trees down or debris in the road, to try to maintain open roadways there. Flooding, the only thing we can do is wait for the flooding to go down. We do have crews available to put cones down and cordon off those areas, along with our fine police department that will reroute those traffic. Again, the concern is the amount of rainfall that we're going to get in such a short time. There's simply nowhere for the water to go, and the storm drains will be overrun. With that said, you may see flooding in areas you've never seen before because of that. So everyone should be on alert. If they're out traveling, be on alert for any type of water, both moving water and standing water. Please do not drive through those. Turn around, don't drown, is what we say.
And then the second question, Lee, is regarded to, it sounds like this is going to be going on until, at least the alert, until 3 p.m. on Tuesday. One resident is asking specifically about, if they lose power, there's not really going to be a need for shelters, obviously, because this is such a short temporary period for us, and we're also in COVID. But what should they do if they lose power is the second question.
Well, if you lose power, contact BG&E to let them know, and don't take for granted that someone else will call. Make sure you call yourself if you can to let them know of the power outages. I know BG&E has called in support for their other sister companies throughout the area, from Chicago and even from into Canada, that crews are coming down to try to maintain service while the storm goes through. So they're on the ball, they're ready for the storm, and like you just alluded to, the majority of the storm should be passing through by late evening tomorrow. As a matter of fact, Wednesday's expected weather is supposed to be sunny and warm. So it's going to be a short storm, but it will have some impact on us. Just hang in there. If you have any life-threatening issues that you encounter because of the power outages, I know a lot of folks may be on home oxygen. Make sure that you have a portable oxygen tank with you if you're on home oxygen. If you lose power and you lose the ability to have that oxygen, dial 911 and they will make arrangements for you to get to the hospital to get your oxygen or whatever.
All right, thanks so much, Lee. I really appreciate it. And I also want to just quickly thank Jamie Braun in our code compliance. I know she was out there doing some of the, all the folks who've been really helpful.
Mr. Mayor, quick question.
Go right ahead.
Say Say, Lee, could you do me a favor? Could you have an eye kept out on the Spangler Lane stormwater area over there? I know there's a area where there's a culvert that's a little too small. We want to make sure that that's kept clear so that we don't have a blockage and we end up with flooding in that area. It's over on it's on Sadler and it goes under 450.
Gotcha, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other council members with any questions for Lee?
Real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Staff.
Lee, thanks again for your report, and thank you as well to Una and all the staff for getting the information out there about changes to hours tomorrow. I got a very informative robocall a couple hours ago, so I really appreciate that. Quick question for staff generally, but this isn't specifically related to the tropical storm, but related to the city manager's report. Could you comment for a quick minute about what the status is of our public works department? I know that we've had a lot of changes and setbacks related to COVID-19 and some staff shortages. I'm starting to see some commentary online of people just observing a change in service, and just want to make sure we took a moment to actually talk to folks a little bit about what's going on, since this is going to continue to be a thing moving forward.
I'll take that one, Mr. Esteve. We have had an instance where COVID-19 positive testing, which has affected other employees, requiring testing, quarantine, people being set aside for 14 days, and some angst and concern amongst the employees in the solid waste division. Over the last 3 days, we have utilized other employees from other divisions to continue with the solid waste and recycling situation. We have the HR department decisively engaged to help us identify the employees who may have been exposed, take them through the protocol that was established three months ago, and we are using other employees from other divisions who have similar skills to help us continue our mission. And we hope that things will improve as the week progresses.
I really appreciate that, and I also just want to say a huge thank you to our public works team. I know that they have been stretched quite thin in the last few weeks. We have the finest public works department in the region, and so I'm really grateful to our employees who've been working incredibly hard under difficult circumstances, and also just want to make sure that residents understood this so that we can ask for their continued patience during these difficult times. I think George is out of town. I believe Dr. Yin has stepped in.
No, well, George came back he came back from his leave and took charge of the circumstances himself in the solid waste division.
He actually returned from his leave.
Yeah, he had to, it was a critical situation, and he's in command.
Well, thank you to Dr. Yin, and as always to George Stefanos, the finest public works director in the region.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions for Lee from anyone? If not,
That ends my report, Mr. Mayor.
Manager.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Excuse me?
That completes my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. I see no old business, and we'll move on to new business. Well, first go to the consent agenda. Bear with me, everyone. All right, we have R56-20, waive bidding for purchase of a wheel loader, and we also have R59-20, bid award for the sewer push camera and cleaning kit. I will entertain motion to consent.
Motion to approve.
Got it. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same right? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, I see no old business there, and moving on to new business. And that is R49-20, COVID-19, the Bowie Business Recovery Program Amendment. I will turn it over to Councilwoman Harrison at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to provide the public with a summary of the memorandum that I shared with the council and the mayor for their approval. And basically, just to kind of give you all some background and discussion. So during a review of Resolution R49-20 at our June 6th council meeting, the council voted to provide a $200,000 grant to the Bowie BIC in partnership with the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce. The initial request attached to the memorandum from the EDC on May 14th as requested $300,000 to the Bowie Innovation Center of the Bowie BIC and the Bowie Chamber of Commerce for the purpose of training and providing assistance for Bowie-based small businesses through the next 12 months. However, that request for $300,000 did not pass and other recommendations were made. Resolution R49-20 was enacted, however, without specific funding designations outlined. And $200,000 was allocated to the Bowie BIC in partnership with the Chamber. And the Bowie BIC was directed by council and staff to work with the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce regarding the funding. It is my recommendation that the language needs clarity to allow both organizations to move forward in assisting Bowie businesses. Therefore, the $200,000 should be equally divided between the Bowie BIC and the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce in 2 separate grants. And the revised language is as follows. And please note that the revised language was reviewed and approved by both organizations. First, there shall be a $100,000 grant to the Bowie Business Innovation Center to be used for the purpose of developing and delivering online services to include a web portal specific to Bowie BIC programs and services, a series of webinars and training activities on business topics for Bowie-based businesses, technical business advice one-on-one, accounting, legal, online marketing, through business open door sessions, and a series of new Bowie CEO business resilience boot camps. The 12-month funding period shall commence on the date of the initial issuance of allocated funds. The city shall be responsible for administering the funds. Second, there shall be a $100,000 grant to the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce for the purpose of developing and delivering services to include a business resource center, internship opportunities for 2 Bowie students, a series of webinars, business development sessions, and monthly counseling for their 150 members and other micro businesses currently impacted by COVID-19 through the next 12 months. Again, the 12-month funding period shall commence on the date of initial issuance of allocated funds, and the city shall be responsible for administering the funds. So the recommendation is that the council adopt the revised language for Resolution R49-20 and provide 2 separate grants from the $200,000 in the amount of $100,000 each. I also recommend that the council obtain a revised statement of work from each organization detailing the work to be performed over the 12-month period. Your questions and comments are certainly welcome at this time. You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
And you passed the test. So what we'll do is we'll start with and go through the district. District 1, any questions or discussion?
And the Bowie BIC is represented as well as the chamber on this call.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate Councilmember Harrison bringing this up. I want to hear from my colleagues, and I'm sure we'll have some more questions for the representatives from Bowie BIC and the Chamber of Commerce as well. And so I'll defer to my colleagues.
All right, thank you. Council member from District 2.
Yes, can we have our friends from the Bowie BIC and from the Chamber speak to the need and to the plans?
Okay. If the council, why don't we start with, I don't see the Bowie, I'll start off with the Bowie Chamber. I don't see the representative from the Bowie bid, so.
Tim, can't hear you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Mayor Adams, council members, staff, and residents. First and foremost, on behalf of the approximately 1,136 businesses that are billed for personal property taxes by the city, the Greater Bowie Chamber, on behalf of the Greater Bowie Chamber, I want to thank you for your foresight and willingness to allocate $200,000 in COVID-19 business relief support. We recognize the fiscal constraints on the city's budget and can appreciate the concerns that all have for ensuring that the monies will be used in a constructive and accountable fashion. And we have implemented a program that will address the immediate impacts and the impacts of forced business interruptions and providing strategies for counseling for those businesses that have been affected. So right now, what we have is one of the most serious health crises of our lifetimes. And it is adversely impacting small and micro businesses' ability to keep their doors open and to provide the services that we need. As I mentioned, there are 1,100 businesses in the city. And our job right now as the Bowie Chamber of Commerce is to be responsive using city money to all 1,100 members of the business community. And I say that to say that our membership is 150 members, and that's a post-COVID number. Prior to the COVID and pandemic occurrence, we were at about 250 members. So we too are seeing the impact on our membership and businesses making prioritizing whether or not they can pay dues, whether they can pay rent, whether they can keep their employees gainfully working and their doors open. So what we have done is we've developed some strategic partnerships with organizations that have experience in working with the SBA so that we can provide counseling to a lot of our small and micro businesses. And one of the things that we recognized is that when the first the first round of COVID funding was released by the federal government, a lot of our businesses here in Bowie, they were not prepared to get their paperwork in on time in order to receive any of that funding. Why is that? Because our average small business, they're busy trying to, just keep their lights on. They're grinding it out from day to day on very, very small margins. They don't have tax professionals at their beck and call. They don't have lawyers. They don't have payroll departments that can just push a button and crank out the paperwork that needs to be cranked out in order to receive those funds. So what we've done is we've established a relationship directly with the SBA and the individual who is responsible for making sure that COVID relief funding is administered down the line, down from the SBA. And what we want to do is we want to make sure and right now the federal government is about to release another round of funding. So this is a very, very time-sensitive issue that we're dealing with. We need to be able to get out there and get our small and micro businesses ready as possible to be able to apply for that money so that they can survive. We as the city are not giving them any money. We understand that. But the best thing that we can do is we can position them to survive through these, to get their paperwork together and survive this initial round, and then to stabilize themselves as they make it through this pandemic, fully recognizing that not all businesses are going to be able to survive. Some are going to have to shut down. It's just a simple fact. But we want to be able to make sure that they have exit plans in place. Exit plans so that they are able to shut their doors in a way that they don't incur tax liabilities and other business crises. So we see ourselves as having a very big job. We see ourselves as having a very big job, and we're positioning ourselves. We would like to bring on board 2 interns, one from Bowie State and one from Bowie High School, people who are working in their marketing and their business departments to help facilitate this. So we're giving these youngsters an opportunity to get in here during this critical period of time and get their hands, roll their sleeves up and go to work to help stem some of the adverse impacts that are being felt today, right now, by some of our small businesses. So rest assured, I want the city and I want all the council to know that we have a work plan. We have a business plan that, without prolonging the meeting, we'd be glad to share with you. We'd be glad to take your input on it. And we would, certainly welcome, continue to welcome your support. And as a final thing, what we have done is we have already put on the street a survey where we're actually asking each of our businesses out there, tell us, what are your most pressing concerns and how best can we address them? So we're engaging with the small businesses that are here in the city of Bowie. We don't want to lose any more businesses down the street to Crofton or down to Annapolis. We want to keep those businesses right here in Bowie if at all possible. So once we understand what their pressing needs are, then our plan will be structured and more focused directly on what that need is, thereby protecting taxpayers' money so that we aren't, shooting at stars and creating programs and doing things that are really not a pressing need for the city of Bowie and their and small businesses today.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. I think at this point, before we take questions, should we hear from is there someone representing the Bowie BIC here as well?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
It's Sherman Ragland. How are you tonight, sir?
Good. How are you, Chairman?
Good. So as you know, I also, in addition to serving as the chair of the City of Bowie Economic Development Committee, I also serve as the chair of the Bowie BIC. And if you would indulge me, be more than happy to speak on behalf of the Bowie BIC, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So just for a bit of history, as you know, you and council charged the city EDC with looking at a larger scale COVID-19 relief. And I'm not going to belabor specific points or dates because I don't remember any of them, to be frank. But I think it was around May. And we as a committee looked at the issue, asked for a call for both residents as well as organizations to provide us with input as well as suggestions. And quite frankly, at my suggestion, the chamber and the Bowie BIC got together and submitted a joint proposal, which made a lot of sense to the EDC. EDC forwarded its recommendations as a part of the broader package onto the city staff, and city staff believed it had merit. And then ultimately, there was a lot of back and forth, as you recall, the night that it actually came before the council and yourself. And ultimately, the original proposal by the EDC was not approved, but there was a more fiscally responsible effort that was ultimately approved by a majority of the members of council. I think the issue was when the parties began to roll up their sleeves and began to work with the city manager and his staff and talk about how could we in fact take $300,000 worth of work and reduce it down to $200,000 worth of work. We suddenly realized that a couple of things had really changed. And I think, quite frankly, out of fairness to the chamber and out of fairness to the Bowie BIC, the proposal by Councilman Harrison is probably the best way to approach it, which is if the original intent that evening was in fact to approve a $200,000 worth of grants to these two organizations, to then split them and then let them come back in and work with the city manager to provide fundamentally similar kinds of services as to what was in that original proposal, but to do it into 2 separate grants. And there have been a number of things that have changed subsequent to that meeting that evening. The first and probably the most important is that the county has decided to expand its COVID relief efforts due to some money I think they got from the federal government. And also in that original proposal, I think the Bowie BIC was going to hire a staff member to help in the implementation of that larger, broader effort. And now what's essentially happening is adjusting to, as they say, the realities on the ground. It's the chamber that wants to hire some interns and hire some people. And Bowie BIC can probably deliver fundamentally almost 100% of what they said, but they couldn't hire another person, obviously. And it wouldn't make sense if the chamber's going to hire the person. So fundamentally what's happening is all the parties are saying, hey, look, if it was the intent of the mayor and council to approve a $200,000 worth of grants to 2 organizations, it probably makes sense to split it in half equitably, equally, and to let each party come back and submit their work and let the city manager take it from there and his team take it from there to implement 2 separate grants. So that, I think, is fundamentally what's being asked of the council and yourself this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Ragland. If you would like to ask any questions at this point, Councilman from District 2, you'll go ahead, or I will move on to the Councilwoman from District 3.
Thank you. I do have a few questions. Mr. King, from staff's perspective, can you explain to me the staff's position on the preference of working through the BIC or through the chamber, past experience with the organizations and the nature of the work that they're accustomed to providing and the like, please?
The statements I made at the earlier council meetings, both the appropriation meeting and the resolution meeting, stand today, which is, I believe, the best agent for safeguarding and effective use of the city's money is the structure as proposed and adopted, which is money to the BIC, shared in partnership with the chamber. It's my understanding that subsequent to all of this, the 2 parties, as Mr. Ragland has explained, see that the path forward may be best served as separating it. While I don't agree with that, staff has not changed the staff position previously, and we rely on council to divine the best course of action going forward.
So let me chime in, sir. To elaborate, if the from a financial perspective, the $200,000 was already gone from technically, it's already been appropriated. If the Chamber of Commerce can deliver the same end result that we expected from the collaboration between them and the Bowie BIC, we, the city, or the staff, city manager is not opposed to that. Of course, we would like to know what the standards are so we can measure them and distribute the money appropriately. But if the chamber can do it, then fine. It's okay with us.
So that leaves the question, that the comment was made earlier about both parties were in agreement that splitting it 50-50 was an appropriate solution. Well, if that doesn't make sense to me, because if that were the case, that would have been perfectly available without coming back to us. The Bowie BIC is in a position, if the grant is to be managed and administered through them, they have $200,000 and $100,000 if they want to, manage the workload through the use of the Chamber of Commerce. Why would they not see fit to advance to that? And maybe I should ask Mr. Ragland this question: if the money is already expected to be expended through the Bowie BIC, and there seems to be an agreement, why do we need to come back and do it directly from the city as opposed to managing it through the usual infrastructure where we manage it through the BIC, and the BIC has the existing ability to do that kind of work, and they have a sub that they would use, which would be the chamber, to the tune of $100,000.
I'm sorry, did you want me to answer that question?
Please, yeah. Let me restate it for you. If we had if we have $200,000 entrusted it to the BIC to manage through administrative oversight of the staff, we have that arranged to go through the Bowie BIC at $200,000. Why is the Bowie BIC unwilling to make an arrangement directly with the chamber for the $100,000 worth of work that needs to be done?
Are you going to call? Are you going to be watching this meeting?
Somebody, Terry, you're not mute.
That can be awkward.
So, I believe the question was directed to me. I am not sure that that is a fair characterization. What originally was proposed was a combined effort where the chamber was going to be doing approximately 1/3 of the work, and the Bowie BIC was going to be doing 2/3 of the work. And I think one of the appeals to that collaboration, one of the appeals to the EDC, and I can only speak from the EDC's perspective, obviously, the city manager and the staff can speak from their perspective, was the fact that the Bowie BIC has an existing contract vehicle with the city. And therefore, it would be an add-on to that contract vehicle. According to the distribution of work that was in that original $300,000 proposal, it would have been done 1/3 Bowie BIC, 1/3 chamber, 2/3 Bowie BIC, with the understanding that if you use an existing contract vehicle, there would be oversight, and you would basically, even though the terms partnership were used, it was essentially going to be a prime sub relationship with prime sub oversight. When the initial meeting was held post the decision by the mayor and council to move forward with a reduced proposal, it was the understanding of the parties that basically the city was looking to procure, call it $300,000 worth of work for $200,000, and therefore both parties would have to reduce the scope. It was the chamber who proposed that that was not what they thought they heard on the evening of the council meeting. What they thought they heard was, in fact, a $200,000 grant to both parties, and therefore it should be split 50-50. And quite frankly, both parties have been at somewhat of an impasse in terms of where do we go from here. And so the chamber said, well, we would like to go back and have our day in court and have the council decide what was the intent of the parties on that evening. And we said, absolutely. And I think my word to the effect is, we will support you in anything that you want to do. So I don't think it's a fair characterization to say that the Bowie BIC doesn't want to do anything. I think what the Bowie BIC would like is some clarification. I think the chamber is asking for clarification. And I think it'd probably be a good thing for the council members who voted in favor of the motion that evening to say, okay, what was the intent of the parties, so that we can move forward. And so we are being a good corporate citizen. At the end of the day, we want to deliver services to this community. We want to deliver services to the city and the constituents and taxpayers of the city.
Thank you.
I thank you, and I take from that, I'll kind of take my summary of it, which is the original intent of the council was to have the Bowie BIC, which has experience with education, with training, with startups and innovators, minority businesses, established businesses, disadvantaged businesses, or what have you, in educating and preparing people for pursuing a successful venture. And we have experience in the relationship with Bowie BIC to ensure that that gets done efficiently, that it's managed properly, that there are tangible results for the money that is spent. And I think that that still stands as a big concern, to ensure that we are getting what we need out of this, and that we have, that we're going to, in effect, a trusted resource in terms of a contract partner. That doesn't mean that the Chamber of Commerce is untrusted, of course. It just means that we have an ongoing relationship there. And the Bowie Chamber of Commerce does not necessarily have that standing experience providing those services. They do provide ample value to the community, but it's not the same strength of experience that we've seen through the Bowie BIC. And that's why I think we ended up with managing it. I know specifically that's why, because I was the one who proposed it and how it came to be, and that's specifically why the Bowie BIC was selected for that. And I'm a little concerned about arbitrarily shifting and putting a higher burden on staff to manage two separate workloads that may or may not conflict. And then they have to parse out which organization should be doing which piece of work, so there's not overlap. I think that could be done through the BIC instead of having staff do that. The administrative and reporting requirements, Bowie BIC has that experience, and I would expect that to continue and that we should take advantage of that. And I would not want to put an undue burden on adding another organization to the roles of relationships that need to be administered by the staff. And I think that if in fact we had a situation where there was no, obviously there's been some disagreement, and I'm not going to go chasing it down, but clearly Bowie BIC probably has some level of expenditure that's different than what the chamber was looking for. The chamber was never intended as a guarantee of 50-50. That was not what we had said in our discussions. We had said that specifically it was to be managed through them. So that was the original intent. Of course, we'll see what colleagues want to do differently now. But I do have concerns with adding in another direct contract under this, and particularly with an organization that doesn't have the experience, and there might present other underlying issues as well. So I do hope that we can move this forward because we do have a lot of needy people out there, a lot of businesses that have struggled and that could certainly benefit from the training, the education that we intended to provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. If I could, I will now go to
Mr. Mayor.
the council person from District 3. And Councilwoman Harrison, I will work right back to you.
Oh, yeah, no, I just had a question to what Dufour just said, but I'll come back. That's fine. I get it. No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The good thing about being in District 3 on a roll call is you get to go before Councilman Wolfley, who usually just lays everything out before you have to get into it. The first question, the first statement I want to say is that we've been talking about business recovery now for the last 3 months, right? When Councilwoman Debbie Madu brought this first to council, we were in budget season, and here we are still kind of debating the merits of what we wanted to do, right? We shut down the grants piece, which I personally believe is going to be really impactful for some of our businesses. To the councilman's part, what Councilman Wolfley just said, one of the things that we wanted to do here, we saw on the federal level how there are so many redundancies and how we needed to have kind of one organization taking the lead on things, right? And on the federal level, what you saw is some consolidation of one organization saying, hey, we are partnering with other folks. Everyone's resources are coming together. We kind of need everybody to be cohesive in this time where there's a global pandemic. That was the same mindset. I thought that was a very lengthy meeting we had a couple weeks ago. I thought this was kind of clearly deliberated. A couple questions. First for you, Chairman Ragland. I know you said this is your day in court. I think I don't want to think this is court. But you talked about impasse, and then you talked about scopes of work. And Mr. Rogers, Chairman, as well. You can also interject here. Is there a fundamental difference in the programs you guys will be implementing? And is there a structural issue that will prevent both the chamber and the BIC from performing these programs?
So I'll take a shot at that. Thank you, Councilman Waffle. Historically, the chamber has worked with, and we've been around since 1985, working with businesses that are up and running. We're talking about, small businesses that are right now immediately have an impact. And that has been our charge. That has been our goal since our inception. Educate, advocate, and connect for those particular businesses. We're not talking about businesses that are in the incubator stage that may or may not have experienced business interruption. And our understanding was that when we talk about COVID relief, it was for businesses that are being impacted. We're not talking about startup businesses. We're talking about mom and pop businesses that are right now experiencing trauma. And so that's just something that's naturally in our wheelhouse. That's what we've been doing, advocating both at the city, county, and state level for those businesses. And I think that, we are more than capable of carrying out our mission. We've carried it out. We've carried it out for, since 1985 or 83, when we were first chartered here in the city, and not had much, come back to the city for any money. We've raised our funds. We've done, what needs to be done to make us a viable organization. But right now, today, this is a pandemic that nobody expected. Nobody's experienced anything like this before. And so therefore, it's requiring an extra level for us to dig a little bit deeper and do some things that we have not done before.
Chairman Ragland?
So a couple things. As the chairman of the EDC, I did not want to be directly involved in the writing of the statement of work on the part of the Bowie BIC and the chamber that jointly was submitted. I wanted to be sort of the impartial, let it have its day in court amongst my fellow EDC members. And when my fellow EDC members heard the proposal in detail, they thought it was a very good idea. And therefore, amongst all the things that were discussed at the EDC meeting, it was one of the things that stayed in, whereas there were several other things, as Mr. Rogers will take, because he was president of that meeting, there were several other things that did not make the cut and were eliminated from our proposal that we submitted to the city manager and then on ultimately to council. I don't believe there is any problem whatsoever in terms of what the parties are proposing to do. Again, it was the position of the Bowie BIC that we thought, and I have to apologize to you and fellow members of council, because maybe all this is my fault. At the end of the hearing that evening, we thought what we heard council saying is, we want to procure $300,000 worth of work for $200,000. And therefore, when my job was done as EDC chair, and then I had to put on my Bowie BIC chair hat, my instruction to Lisa Smith and our staff at Bowie BIC is, please get together as quickly as possible with representatives from the chamber to work through what should be in this revised scope of work, with the full understanding that we, the Bowie BIC, would be supervising the work, accountable for the work. And again, longtime government contractor, I sort of see the world through the eyes of a government contractor. And that was sort of my instruction as chair. From what I have firsthand experience and what I also understand, there was a call for a meeting. I did participate in one of the early meetings that also included senior representatives of the chamber. There was some conversation and discussion as to what would be the allocation of work, what would be the allocation of money, et cetera, et cetera. The chamber made its position known, we made our position known. And then there was supposed to be a follow-up meeting for, again, the parties who were involved in writing the statement of work to revise the statement of work. And my understanding was that both of those meetings were canceled on the part of the chamber. And there was really not much of a reason given. It was, we just want to wait and see how things go, but we can't make these two meetings. So again, the Bowie BIC has been ready for over a month now to get started and get to working. But if the understanding is that the city sees it as a partnership, and again, I use the air quotes, because at the end of the day, if what I thought council was asking, and then I'm hearing the same kinds of things being said tonight that were said before, which is the city is looking to the Bowie BIC, it's not really a partnership. It's a prime sub relationship. That doesn't mean that the parties can't work together. It doesn't mean that it can't be collegial and collaborative. But when you have a prime sub relationship and one party is looking to the infrastructure of the other, there's a cost associated with using that infrastructure and a cost associated with, hey, we want to make sure that things are done to a certain standard. And that by definition can't be 50-50. If one party at the end of the day puts their signature on it and subject to audits on and on and on based on contract and procurement regs, and the other party is acting in a sub capacity, it can't be a partnership. It's a prime sub relationship, and therefore the parties need to come together and work through with the understanding that it's a prime sub, and the distribution of work and the distribution of expenses needs to act equitably and accordingly.
Thank you so much, both of you guys. Two other questions. The first is for staff. City manager, did you say we already allocated this money? How would this work out if this proposal went forward? Did I hear that correctly?
Well, we've actually appropriated the money. We haven't distributed anything yet.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. So I'll give my summary and then I'll let my other members take it from here. Again, this is a really extremely important time for us to be guiding businesses in an appropriate way, right? Again, my preference would have been grants, but neither here nor there. We've deliberated this issue for a couple months. We need to move forward. To be 1,000% frank with everybody here, this does sound like an impasse issue. It sounds like two organizations that, although there's a lot of respect there, have different visions on how to move forward. If there needs to be guidance from the city council and mediation on how that works, we can make that happen. But revising the scope of work and moving in that direction isn't something that I think, in agreement with Councilman Wolfley, that I'm in agreement with, right? I know that the BIC has plans for a CEO program. I know that I just spoke to Pauline today about some of the chambers things, and I think that we do need to come together in collaboration so that we have Bowie businesses affected on one level. So if there's a need for mediation, I think the mayor, myself, and other members of this council can work that through, but we need to get hitting the ground running on that. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'm finished with all my questions.
Hey, thank you, Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman from District 4.
Mr. Mayor, if you could please circle back to me, that'd be appreciated.
Okay, Councilman Gardner.
I'm experiencing some little small technical issues. Can everyone hear me okay?
A little low, but I can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I will like to express, I do understand exactly everyone's point of view here, and it is, okay. And with that being said, I understand the chamber's point of view, and I understand BIC's point of view. It would be great if we could somehow get those two organizations on the same path. So the city council wants to be helpful to both organizations because both organizations are providing services in the community to our business community. It would be great if we could just at least divide the funding and allow each organization to manage their own funds. Initially, when I heard all of this, and when we were first going through this, I thought the chamber's ask was $85,000, and the remainder of those funds were to go to the Bowie BIC. I would like to see just the division of the funding and letting each organization manage their own funds.
Okay, thank you, Councilman.
You got it.
Councilman Harrison, circling back to you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions based on Councilmember Wolfley's comments. So I would like to ask staff, I don't know who would answer the question, but how much workload would the additional grant add to the staff workload to distribute separate $100,000 grants? How much workload would that add?
It's very difficult to quantify, but it would double the amount of time I spend managing the grant for small business right there. We would be starting from zero, as we have none of the background information on the chamber that we have for the Innovation Center, things like financials. We would have to get the plans crafted, which is probably the case from both organizations. Although, as I hear tonight, perhaps the organizations have plans that would be available for review tomorrow. So it's going to increase the workload. I don't believe that's the critical point in the decision you're facing.
No, I understand
That's all I've got.
that, but that's just a question that I had because that was something that Councilmember Wolfley alluded to.
It's going to be more work. And I appreciate Mr. Wolfley's the question on it. It's a very accurate observation. I don't believe that's the critical point in the decisions that council has to make tonight on this topic.
So what's the critical point, Mr. King? In your opinion, Mr. King, what's the critical point?
Are you going to get the work that you anticipated when you appropriated the funds from the parties involved in the amounts that they're requesting?
Right, and I guess I really have a concern that it seems to me that there are a couple of people, you included, that have no faith in the chamber, and that's unfortunate. And it seems like we're just not even willing to give them a chance to show that they can do this work and provide reports to us based on, and I know they will have to report to us. I don't know if it's quarterly or what it is for the grant, but I'm just seeing that you all just don't have faith in the chamber, and that's unfortunate, but I have faith in them. I also have faith in the Bowie BIC, and I'd like to see this work out for both organizations. I have a question about how many Bowie-based businesses are affiliated with the BIC currently?
So, all due respect, I hear the question. I'm not sure it's relevant, but there are, I believe, 10 companies that are in residence. And then we have, I believe, another 100 that are affiliate. And then we have another level of affiliation. And then there's other work. But again, the Bowie BIC was approaching this based on the statement of work that was submitted to the city. And the statement of work that was submitted to the city was based on providing services to, I believe, 1,800 businesses. And it's very similar in nature to the statement of work that was being developed for the county to support the county in its county-wide COVID program. So I appreciate the question, but I'm not sure that was the basis for what the grant submission was. And again, the grant submission was originally worked out between the two parties. I mean, the Bowie Chamber and the Bowie BIC were both very willing participants in the drafting of the statement of work that went into that proposal. And the Bowie Chamber submitted a statement of work that had $100,000 from the ground up price associated with it. And the Bowie BIC submitted a $200,000 from the ground up. And that's how we came up with the $300,000, or the parties came up with $300,000, because again, I was not intimately involved in the drafting of it, but I was involved in the reviewing of it. And again, it was not based on membership. It wasn't based on the membership that the chamber has, and it wasn't based on the current members. It was based on a ground up statement of work to provide services to 1,800 businesses in the city of Bowie.
Okay. So, well, thank you, Sherman. I appreciate that. Well, we just need to just come up with a solution or something this evening that offers some numbers that we can make sure that are allocated to each organization. And even if the Bowie BIC is provided the funding, the $200,000, that would be great. And as long as it's still split 50-50, I would be great, happy with that piece. So that's all from my part.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'd like to move to Council member from District 1. I'm sorry, who was trying to say something?
Sherman, if I could make a comment at some point, it doesn't have to be now.
Okay, let's move on to our council member from District 1.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that I understand exactly where things are falling right now. So city staff, if the proposal that Councilmember Harrison does not move forward tonight, what further direction do you need from us?
Well, as it stands right now, if this doesn't change, we have to proceed with the last directive, which was to encourage the Bowie BIC and the Chamber of Commerce to work out a relationship and work out an agreement. And so the Bowie BIC being the senior part of that team.
Gotcha. A specific question from Mr. John Henry King. Mr. Henry King, to move forward as the city manager describes, what specific framework or guidance would be helpful from the city council to move things forward?
Clear confirmation that the vote you took on the resolution previously is still your position on it.
Got it. And if we were to stick with that, you would be okay?
I'd be fine with it.
Understood. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Council member from District 2. Anything else?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I'll follow up with one final observation, which is using the comments made earlier that, it does look like we have an issue with a prime and a subcontractor, and the subcontractor would like additional work. I do have concern with that, and I think that needs to be sorted out between the two of them, and with the prime being the responsible party for it. And I do think it goes back to that issue where we have the Bowie BIC, which has a longstanding experience with training, and if you juxtapose that against what we have available and the resources for the chamber, which I believe has only one full-time employee, with the hopes, of course, of adding some interns to the fray to help move things along. But I think our original position was probably the correct one. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman from District 3.
I'll let my colleague from District 4 go. I know she hasn't gotten a chance to ask any questions or make any comments, and then I'll follow after.
Okay, we'll have to go back around, but okay. Council member from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was trying to come off mute. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Chamber and the BIC for being on the line this evening. Your hard work and your diligence on this topic is well appreciated for our business community. So very, very grateful for the work, and thank you to Councilwoman Harrison for bringing this forward and bringing this to our attention. I think I'm gonna echo the sentiments of my colleagues from District 1 and District 3 in the sense of, all the questions that they've asked and everything that they've brought forward. I think the original intent was to be there for the business community, which is still the intent because they're in need and this pandemic has not passed yet. So I think that's the number one priority here. I think it's unfortunate that we are still discussing this, and this was approved on July 6th. So I do find that unfortunate for that community that they are in this time of need and we are having trouble finding a way forward. This does sound like, I'm going to echo a lot of my colleagues here, this does sound like there is an impasse between two organizations. I think the intent has always been to be there for the chamber and assist the chamber, which is why they were included in the original and initial proposal. So I just want to make that clear that no one here is not looking to support the chamber, which is why we included them. I think what you're seeing is that it's not really about a lack of faith here. It's more about what's the most efficient way to move forward and help the businesses here in Bowie. And from what we've seen, from where we stand here, and I'm going to speak for myself in District 4, the BIC has successfully performed and managed, a lot of contracts for the city over the years. And we've heard it from John Henry King and staff themselves. We're very familiar with what is, the work that has come from the Bowie BIC over the years. And I don't think that right now is the time to make a change during a severe crisis where you have multiple businesses that are facing difficulty at the time. So I don't think that now is the time to try a new approach. I think that it's the time for us to get with these two organizations and help them find a path forward and how they move forward to provide these services to the business community. So that is my stance. Mr. Mayor, with that being said, I'm going to make a motion to disapprove. I'm going to make a motion to disapprove Resolution R-49-20 and move forward as we originally were.
Would the councilwoman take a friendly amendment?
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Boafo.
Also add in that motion to ensure that most members of this council will work with both the BIC and the chamber to ensure that we work through this mediation period.
Mr. Mayor, there's no need to take any action. If you disapprove the resolution, then that would kill what we've already done. The question at hand is whether you approve the amendment to or not to the. Right.
For that
Correct.
Mr. City Manager, yeah. So I'm gonna make a motion to disapprove the amendment to resolution that R-49-20.
With the friendly amendment well, we're disapproving the amendment, so we'll work from there.
Right.
All right, it's been moved and second that we disapprove the amendment. Are there any further discussion?
I apologize. Question on that motion. Councilmember Harrison is kind of our resident parliamentarian. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't need to disapprove an amendment. We just don't need to bring it for a vote, correct?
That's correct. You need to put all motions in the form of a positive anyway.
Right. So I don't think we can actually technically disapprove a motion from a parliamentary perspective. I apologize about that. Just wanted to jump in. So I think all we need to do is just not vote on this amendment if we don't have a motion for it or a second.
That sounds
or,
good.
Or if there is a motion and a second, we can just vote it down.
Vote it down, exactly.
Or a motion to table.
Okay.
Table it. I mean, I think we just need to, if you guys aren't on board with it, I mean, all I can say is I tried to assist the organizations to move forward. So if you're not on board with it, I understand. I appreciate the discussion, and I'm hoping we can move forward in a positive manner.
Yes. And having said that, and I think we can do this, I would like to make a motion for a recommendation that we have a couple of members of the city council who would like to meet with and talk with the Bowie BIC and the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that we can get some further guidance.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarification. Alyssa, again, I could be totally wrong here, but I do believe we do need a motion to kill an amendment, correct? Since this has been proposed on the agenda, it should have some type of action, correct?
Well, what would happen would be somebody would call the question on the amendment as on the agenda, and you would see if there's a second, and if not, it would die. And
Okay.
if there was, you would vote it on it, and it still might go down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's.
All right, so at this point, I will call for a motion on the amendment.
No, I think Mr. Mayor.
Hearing none, the amendment dies, okay? I think that's what we were trying to get at there. I was just saying, because we can vote on a recommendation, I was moving that that we make a recommendation for a couple of members of the council to work with the Bowie BIC and with the Bowie Chamber to make sure we help them get through the impasse.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I agree.
Okay, so that's
Likewise.
second.
Second.
Yes. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Opposed? And that recommendation carries. Okay. So we will do that. Thank you again to the councilwoman for bringing us to the floor. Thank you for Bowie BIC, Bowie Chamber, and all of our council members for having a very good dialogue about what we're trying to do, because I think we're all 100% behind trying to support our community, particularly our businesses as we go forward.
Mr. Mayor.
So thank you again for that. Yes.
Well, staff has one question since invariably we'll be working this. Which two council members will we be working with to help this situation?
Volunteers, District 3, District 4. Who would like to?
I'd be happy to do it if you need it.
Okay, who are the volunteers so that we can hear it for city staff? Or we can talk later, but we need to do that. And if need be, city manager, we can get back to you with that if we don't have those now.
Well, Mr. Wolfley volunteered. Mr. Wolfley volunteered.
Everybody else stepped back, so I'm I'm volunteered.
They're all behind you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't hear anybody. That's nice. Okay, before anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question. What's the allocation of funding? So we're talking about, mediating the situation. Is that going to be part of the discussion?
That would be part of that discussion, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Help
Mr.
get through
Mayor,
the impasse.
you can put District 4 down, myself. Thanks.
Okay, so we have District 2 and District 4. All right, thank you very much. City Manager, did you hear that? And I'd ask this.
I got it, Mr.
City
Mayor.
Clerk to make a note of that. Hey,
Thank you. No, we got it.
All right. All right, next, moving to the Bowie Town Center Plan Amendment for Sears. I think we will turn that over to staff on that, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. For the record, Frank Stevens from the City Planning Staff. To review with you tonight, Bowie Town Center Basic Plan Amendment number A-8589-04, submitted by the Seritage SRC Finance LLC. The property in question is 10.81 acres in the MAC Major Activity Zone, which is a comprehensive design zone. It's the site of the existing but now vacant Sears building. It's bordered to the north by Maryland Route 197, and to the east and south by Evergreen Parkway. The request is to increase the residential density in the MAC zone area of the town center by up to 800 residential dwelling units, which include multifamily townhouses, not to exceed 150 units, and/or beds in assisted living facility, retail uses including shops and restaurants, hotel use of up to 150 rooms, and/or possibly office uses. The amendment does not include an increase in the cap of the retail and office commercial square footage. It only affects the increase in the dwelling unit cap in the MAC zoned portion of the town center. To go through the staff report, I'll try and be as brief as I can. We have a background section in our report beginning on page 2, which briefly discusses a basic plan, that it's the first step in a multi-step process in the development review process. Subsequent steps will be an amended comprehensive design plan, a preliminary plan of subdivision, and a specific design plan, all of which will be the subject of future public hearings. On page 4 of our report, there's a summary of a virtual stakeholders meeting that was held on June 16th of this year, with approximately 24 public attendees present. On pages, beginning on page 6 through 17, we discussed the criteria for approval of a basic plan in accordance with section 27195B of the county zoning ordinance. And a detailed discussion of those criteria begins on page 7. On page 8 of the report discusses policies and goals of the county's general plan and also of the Bowie and vicinity master plan. On pages 9 through 11, there's a discussion regarding unit calculation and unit density, establishing a base residential density and a maximum residential density. On pages 12 and 13, reference is made to the county's comprehensive housing strategy goals, one of which is to build more mixed use and mixed income developments. And there's also information regarding the Council of Governments housing study, which was recently completed. Addressing the criteria for approval of a basic plan continues on pages 14 through 16, where there are discussions regarding economic analysis of retail and commercial areas, transportation facilities, existing or planned private and public facilities, environmental relationships, and project completion. On pages 17 through 18, there's a discussion regarding the conformance with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and reasons for comprehensive design zones in accordance with section 27-476 of the zoning ordinance. It also includes a discussion of general plan characteristics of town centers, the purposes of the Bowie and vicinity master plan, and master plan goals for the Bowie Town Center, which include promoting compact mixed-use development and moderate to high densities, and encouraging high-quality infill and redevelopment of existing commercial centers. On pages 19 and 20, there's a discussion of the purposes of the MAC, Major Activity Center Zone, in accordance with section 27489A. On pages 21 through 24, there's a discussion of public benefit features and density increment factors in accordance with section 27486 of the zoning ordinance. And there are calculations that are provided in the staff report, which are for illustrative and informational purposes only at this time. The calculations for these factors are done at the next stage, at the CDP stage. On page 24 of the report is the staff recommendation. Because the basic plan amendment meets the purposes of the MAC zone and the criteria for approval of a basic plan, the staff is recommending approval with conditions stated on page 25 of the report. That concludes the staff presentation, and I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Terry Rogers, chairman of the BAPB, for a report on the board's meeting on July 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
Yes, good evening again. For the record, Terry Rogers, chairman of the Bowie Planning Advisory Board. And as Mr. Stevens stated, we did hear staff's report, and we did hear from the applicant for the subject property. And we did take several questions from the residents, and the questions ranged from approval of this project. There were several residents that raised concerns about bringing in more housing, bringing in more businesses, considering the state of the Bowie Town Center as it is now. But overall, we found that, and we voted that the project met with the standards for approval, and we moved to accept staff's recommendation for approval. With one caveat, there was the issue was brought up about housing and the number of housing, affordable housing units or workforce housing units that would be made available in the course of developing the project. And the developer's position was that it's too early in the process to actually identify a percentage. Staff requested a 10% set aside, or 10% of the available dwelling units be set aside for workforce housing. And of course, the developer is of the opinion that it's too early in the process because they don't know what types of units are going to be built yet and what the mix of units will be. But the residents and the Bowie Planning Advisory Board felt like that's not really a hard ask of the developer to make that set aside or to identify a percentage. All too often we find ourselves late in the process of going through the development process of when is it too late for us to actually affect and have meaningful impact on the development. So we do know that there's going to be one more hearing, or one more hearing. There's going to be many more hearings as we move through the process. But by the time we get to specific, I believe it's identified in the report, specific design review, or I'm pretty sure staff will correct me on what that actual designation is. But we will have an opportunity to, at that point in time, make a request or a requirement on the developer for a specific number of workforce housing units. But other than that, the staff, the Bowie Planning Advisory Board recommended approval of the project with the conditions that staff had identified.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Moving on. Is there anything at this point? Is there anyone else? Oh, there you are. At this point, we move on to the presentation. Continue. Antonetti, you have the mic.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Robert Antonetti with the law firm of Shipley & Horn, with offices in Largo, Maryland. We're pleased to be here on behalf of the applicant, Seritage SRC Finance, LLC, the owner of what we call the Sears parcel, Lot 6, within the retail core of the Bowie Town Center. Tonight with me, I do have Mr. Robert Orsini on behalf of Seritage joining me. I also have Mr. Joseph DeMarco with Bowler Engineering, the civil engineers on the project. And we also have Mr. Michael Lenhart, the traffic engineer with Lenhart Traffic Consultants. I'd like to thank staff and particularly Mr. Stevens for his review. It was very thorough, and he has been very communicative with the applicant and has allowed us to answer questions and work collaboratively to get to the recommendation that staff has before you this evening. I'd like to thank Mr. Rogers and the Bowie Advisory Planning Board for their hearing very recently. As he mentioned, it was a unanimous recommendation for approval, which we're very thankful for. Just in a macro sense, I also would like to thank the council. I'd like to thank really the entirety of the city operations. Sitting here watching this virtually from my location is really a testament to the sophistication of the city and your determination to continue with city operations and city business, including oversight and commentary on development within the municipal boundaries. So kudos to you for a very well delivered virtual experience this evening. Tonight, as Frank mentioned, we are here on behalf of the applicant for a basic plan amendment for the Bowie New Town Center. So the Bowie New Town Center is zoned MAC, which is Major Activity Center. And it was a zone that allows a mix of uses, includes commercial office, retail, institutional, and includes residential uses as well. The MAC zone allows for a range of minimum of 10 dwelling units per acre in the New Town Center criteria, which this is a New Town Center under the MAC zoning designation, and a maximum of 47.9 dwelling units per acre. The zone was originally placed on 246 acres within the Bowie New Town Center area, 246 acres, I'm sorry, in 1975. The basic plan was then amended in 1982 to refine the development figures and yield for the entire project in the MAC zone. And in 1988, the MAC zone was revised again, leaving a total possible retail development of 1,225,000 square feet of retail square footage, 900,000 square feet of office square footage, and 1,420 residential units. We know that the MAC zone is a comprehensive design zone within the county zoning ordinance. And the comprehensive design zone is a layered approach which allows for initial zoning criteria, initial land use quantities, very basic information, as the name implies, to be the framework or foundation for later zoning approvals. The later zoning approvals after this basic plan, there's essentially 2 more zoning approvals and 1 subdivision approval. So there's a total of 4 steps. The first being the basic plan amendment, which we're requesting tonight specifically for the Sears parcel. There is also, secondly, the comprehensive design plan amendment, amending the existing comprehensive design plan, which will give you further detail about the design criteria and urban design characteristics of a forthcoming plan on the Sears parcel. The subdivision process would then follow. It's be called a preliminary plan of subdivision, which you've likely seen and reviewed as in your capacity as a city council applications filed with the county. That is where a more detailed public facilities testing will occur for a specific yield, particularly for residential uses on the parcel. And finally, as Mr. Rogers mentioned, the specific design plan is the final step, which shows very specific characteristics for development, including exact number of units, landscaping, lighting, heights, color of brick, parking facilities, all those details that you would see that would basically be the basis for building permit plans. What I have tonight is I have a brief slideshow. I'm going to try and share this after I thank the sophistication of the process. I may screw this up, but if you could bear with me, I'm going to try and share my screen. And okay. I'm not sure. Is my screen visible at all? No. Okay. Well, I don't know. Well, I'll have to put that down. I apologize. And it's definitely user error on my part. But nonetheless, what specifically, if I were to share the slideshow with you, I'd basically be showing you several things. First I'll be showing you an early comprehensive design plan that was approved in 1985. That comprehensive design plan showed really the general labels of where different development would occur within the boundaries of the MAC zone. And what you would see, if it was on the screen, you'd see in the center is the Bowie retail core, which is now basically the retail mall offerings that you see before you. It is listed as residential, as retail and office. And we know that what we need today is the opportunity to change those plans to allow for the introduction of residential specifically within the Bowie Town Center core, retail core, specifically the Sears parcel itself. This application does not include other properties within the retail core. We do have some very very capable and fine neighbors, including the Washington Prime Group, which controls a large portion of the retail offerings. And there's several individual owners within the retail core itself. Our amendment, again, is specific to the Bowie, specific to the Sears parcel. And what we show on the second sheet of our basic plan amendment is a zoom in of our lot 6. Our lot 6 essentially has a label that says mixed use. And that's what a basic plan does. It labels what is envisioned generally over a certain area. And our parcel is about 10.8 acres in total, out of the 246 acres in the total MAC zone. We also show some general circulation patterns, access points within the existing road network that is out at the center. What's fascinating about our proposal is that while we're proposing a new mixed-use anchor, as it were, at the site of the vacant 125,000 square foot Sears building, we are very pleased to bring this offering in the form of a basic plan and through later applications, because we feel it's a wonderful place for a mix of uses, including residential uses, to occur. Specifically, the Bowie New Town Center was conceived in 1975 to have numerous amenities, not just road networks, but numerous amenities for its residents. And that's what we have today. This is really not putting the cart before the horse. There are substantial amenities within walking distance of this parcel. Starting first with City Hall. The beautiful City Hall is right across the street from where the Sears lot is. We have the Bowie Gymnasium. We have the Bowie Health Center. We have the police department. We have fire and EMS. We also have walkability to a park and ride. We have the retail core itself, which we feel we could greatly benefit through the introduction of a 24-hour population into the area that would help activate and support the retail core, which is so essential to the success of the Bowie Town Center as a whole. Again, incredibly walkable and incredibly convenient to meet the needs of both existing residents and potential future residents on this parcel. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work with our partners within the retail core. We do have, again, the Washington Prime Group and others, and we're excited to continue to work with them in preparing a final plan or more detailed plans, again, as we mentioned, the 4-step process. We're in step 1 to deliver the types of amenities and types of uses that will really help our parcel and the overall Sears parcel thrive. With that being said, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Robert Ursini, and then after he speaks, if I could just have a few summary words to recapture our request. But Mr. Ursini again is with Seritage Growth Properties, and he's here to speak on behalf of the applicant and really give you a little insight as to the company and why this is so important to move forward on this application request. So, Rob, if you're there, if I turn it over to you.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Rob, did you want to read the letter from Mr. Stephen Harris from Washington Prime Group now or later?
Well, I could do it now. I was going to do it later, but I could do it right now. Mr. Stephen Harris with the Washington Prime Group is Vice President of Development, and he did email. He was having a little technical difficulty signing on this evening, but he did email a message or letter to Ms. Ransom. So hopefully that's part of the record. If I could, Mr. Mayor, have your discretion. It's a brief letter. I could read it into the record.
I think that's fine since he's having trouble getting on. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It says, members of the City Council, my apologies, but I cannot access the meeting over some sort of technical challenge that I cannot overcome. I had planned to speak tonight in support of Seritage application as an important evolution of the Bowie Town Center. Washington Prime Group, which owns 110 retail shopping venues throughout the U.S., also owns a large part of the Bowie Town Center and has been working closely with Seritage on their application. In a nutshell, WPG supports the application before you tonight and asks that the city vote favorably for it. Mixed-use development is a top priority for us nationally, so we fully support the mixed-use redevelopment of an empty anchor, Sears, into residential uses, which is conducive and will be positively impactful to the entire retail core. Residential uses support existing and future tenants and retailers on the WPG portion of the site, as well as other adjacent commercial property owners, and creates a sense of place vital to our industry and changing customer tastes. I can also tell you that having an anchor close is a challenge for mall owners and operators. This proposed project and application represents a significantly positive future for the entire Bowie Town Center. Thank you for your attention. Best, Stephen Harris. And thank you for that. So Rob, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Robert Ursini with Seritage Growth Properties. I can't believe that it's been a year and a half now that Sears is vacated. As you know, vacancies are detrimental to the surrounding communities and lead to increased crime, and that puts a strain on public services. It has a negative impact on the adjacent retail, decreases the neighborhood's property values, and the longer the vacancy stays in place, the greater these negative impacts are. So we think it's important to bring about change as soon as possible. And that's really the reason we've submitted this basic plan amendment without a specific site plan in hand, because we wanted to get the process moving as quickly as possible so that we can get to a project that's up and creates a vibrancy that will help benefit the entire neighborhood. So Seritage Growth Properties is a national development firm. We've developed over 100 projects in the 5 years that we've been in business, and we've leased approximately 10 million square feet. Our leasing team has been working hard since we purchased the site and have been unsuccessful trying to lease it up. And that's really for two reasons. As I'm sure you're aware, the difficult retail environment, especially department stores. And I think given what's happened with COVID, everything is just being multiplied. The other reason is this is a true two-story building. And in today's retail environment, not many retailers are left that operate in a two-level fashion. So it's been very difficult for us to find any interest in occupying the building. Therefore, we've started to focus on the redevelopment of the parcel. And it's really the demise of the department stores has led to this, or morphed into this mixed-use anchor that seems to be the way things are moving in terms of these regional malls. When these department stores are going vacant, these mixed-use anchors are moving in and have proved to be very successful throughout the country. We're able to create a place here where people can not only play and shop and dine, but can work and live also. And residential is a key component to that, and it creates a 24/7 environment. So the mixed-use anchor not only benefits the adjacent retail, but it can stand alone and be self-sustaining in itself. Seritage is developing a number of mixed-use projects. Two I will note is in Dallas, Texas. We refer to it as Park Heritage, and in Redmond, Washington. And we're working on a number of others that they're all in the planning stages now. And Bowie Town Center is an ideal candidate for this type of use, mixed use anchor. The MAC zone already contemplates a mix of uses, and it's an open air, Bowie Town Center is an open air pedestrian friendly design. And it has amenities in place already, such as the grocery store, the bookstore, the fitness center, which lends itself well to our mixed-use anchor. So once a definitive plan is determined, and during the future phases of the entitlement process, as Rob mentioned, we have 4 phases, and this is the first of 4. We intend to work with the city on specific requirements for things such as affordable and workforce housing, as Mr. Rogers has mentioned, accessibility and ADA design, minority and local-owned business participation, and green building standards and sustainable design efforts. But we believe all of those will be working in partnership with the city during this approval process, And we think that the appropriate time is once we have a plan in place that we can really talk specifics and agree to things there. So in summary, given the vacancy, time is not on our side. The basic plan amendment's the first step in this multi-phased and multi-year entitlement process. But it will put the zoning in place so that we can now create a plan and come back to you at the next stage of the entitlement process. We believe this redevelopment will bring additional vibrancy and life to Bowie Town Center and the surrounding community. So I thank you for your consideration, and we look forward to partnering with the city to bring about a project that everyone will be proud of. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Antonetti, you had some closing remarks, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, again, thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. I certainly echo and endorse Mr. Orsini's comments on the application. We do urge your support. In sum, the application is an amendment, again, of the basic plan for the Bowie Town Center specific to the Sears parcel. It does introduce a use onto our parcel that is permitted by right in the MAC zone, is contemplated within the master plan, is contemplated within the general plan as its designation as part of the Bowie Local Center. We do meet all the requirements of the MAC zone, both its purposes and the specific requirements for amendment of a basic plan as outlined in the staff report and in our statement of justification that was filed in support of this application. With regards to the recommended conditions of approval, we do have, as Mr. Rogers noted, a slight disagreement with staff regarding condition 2, dealing with the affordable dwelling unit percentage. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first step of essentially a 4-step process. We don't feel that we're in a position to agree to a specific percentage of affordable dwelling units, but we don't feel that it's necessarily required at this time. There are multiple opportunities which really will not prejudice the city's position or its ability to really push and advocate for a specific percentage. But we feel as the applicant, we need to know the specifics of our plan to know how many units we're providing, what types of units, what they look like, do they already meet the needs of a workforce population? If not, then what percentage is appropriate? What would be the criteria of the program? Being involved already with an affordable dwelling unit agreement for another project within the city, I know that the agreement is quite detailed and it took a certain amount of negotiation. While we're not opposed to the concept of it, we just feel that the time is really not at this very general basic plan time, which is meant to introduce as a flexible amount the minimum and maximum land use quantities that are possible. We feel that once the application proposal is refined to a level of specificity and necessary to make decisions relative to this particular item, that we can then move forward in conjunction with the city to come up with a condition that makes sense. So because of that, we respectfully request that condition number 2 be altered to state, at the time of preliminary plan of subdivision, the applicant shall identify an appropriate percentage of new dwelling units to be constructed on lot 6 for individuals earning between 60 and 80% of the area's average median income. Again, that would be at preliminary plan of subdivision, at which point we would know how many units and what type, because we'd be specifically testing those quantities and types at an APF test. So we really don't feel that, we feel that would be the appropriate time to really have this discussion and determination for affordable or workforce housing units to be made. So with that, I greatly appreciate your consideration of this request. We respectfully urge your support. We are looking forward to moving this forward as expeditiously as possible so we can get to the later stages and really find a way to reimagine this now closed anchor and the very important and vital Bowie New Town Center retail core. So with that, we're available to answer hopefully any questions or that you may have, and we look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk, should we go to you for reading of comments at this time
Yes, sir. So we received 16 comments for this evening for the record in regards to the Sears property. So I will be reading them. First one is from Dan O'Neill from Meadowbrook. He states, I'm okay with the intended development so long as it doesn't increase the number of cars on our already overloaded roads. Next one is from Kim and Tim Gross. Please pass this along to our city council. My husband and I have been Bowie residents since 1981. We do not feel that any new development in the way of apartments, hotel, or restaurants should take place at the Bowie Sears area. The town center is limping along, and I know of several residents who don't shop there at all. Since losing Bed Bath & Beyond, Old Navy, Sears, and the Hallmark store, I shop there infrequently. Adding apartments could lead to more crime, something we do not need. We appreciate the way Bowie was designed to be, single-family homes with lots of green space. We can't keep the businesses that we do have going strong. Let's not add more. More people are shopping online. No to more development. The next one is from Dan Blades. When the Bowie Town Center was in the design phase, my wife and I attended meetings giving the engineers and the city our views about the planned center. At that time, the center land was all woods. One of the things we were in support of was to have housing over the top of the stores. That never happened. We still believe housing makes sense in order to stabilize the shopping center. It would provide an economic base for the stores, particularly if they catered to the residents. I do not know if 800 is the right number, but still believe residential use of the Sears property would be an asset to the center. If Macy's also leaves, there would be another opportunity for more housing. Having restaurants and other businesses also using the space in these two facilities would be a plus. The more the center is used, the less opportunity for vandalism. Maybe some of the center could be for cultural arts, a museum, or other public use. Need to think out of the box. Thank you. Next one is from Maureen Blades. I am tagging on to my husband Dan's comments and providing some additional info on what the city did way back when. What the city council and appropriate committees did was hold what I remember as a design charrette, an architectural design meeting open to all the citizens of Bowie to discuss options, ideas, and plans for the proposed Bowie Town Center. It was held in a large room that accommodated many that may have been Tasker Middle School's auditorium or a community center. A renowned professor from Princeton University came and gave a slideshow presentation and talk on the difference made in how communities looked if careful thought was given beforehand, such as where sidewalks were put at intersections with room for a bench and the materials used, such as bricks. How townhouses were more attractive if the first thing you saw wasn't the garage jutting way out from the facade, and so forth. It was clear that having residents, young, active people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, live above retail in a small-scale town center was good for all, with shops more like Princeton, New Jersey itself, perhaps, or Annapolis, Georgetown, Chestertown, with coffee houses, bookstores, gift shops, clothing stores, and more. Those who attended were broken down into groups who sat at round tables and shared what they envisioned the new center to be and look like. I'm sure guidance or questions were given us. Believe the professor or others visited each table. At the end, each group shared their thoughts with the whole. At the time, a stream ran through the property and there were considerable trees and woods. It was envisioned leaving the stream there and enhancing it with occasional walkways, bridges over it to access the businesses via sidewalks from either side with shrubbery plants, and trees to offer shade for people to sit in comfort, chat with friends, wait for others, or relax with an ice cream or coffee. There has been at least one small white tablecloth restaurant with excellent food at the town center. I believe others would be welcome. Think Allison's in Crofton. I believe today's Bowie residents are more diverse, not only in race, but also in age, with more singles as well. Would the town center envisioned at that charrette had come to be? It sounded doable, looked pleasant, and was sensible, a place residents and those from surrounding communities would want to seek out. I'm a senior myself, so I'm not ruling out a place for senior housing here, but am thinking of the area most closely around and or above businesses for those seeking an active lifestyle and or needing the amenities nearby. Wouldn't hurt to reach out to former city council members for their input. Dan's told me he believes I missed a deadline. Oh, never mind. That was another comment. That was my intention. Okay, the next one is from Alita Gary Carter. I hope this letter finds you well. I am Alita Gary Carter, the CEO and founder of the Commission for Health, LLC. I am also a community member that resides within the 20715 zip code of Bowie, Maryland. I am writing to oppose the residential development of the current Sears department store. I oppose this possibility for the following reasons. The city of Bowie does not have sufficient infrastructure to support this type of expansion. In the proposal that I read, 800 units were suggested to take the place of the current department store. This would increase the burden of vehicle traffic within our city, the student enrollment within our local schools, and the use of our local resources, urgent care centers, pharmacies, and the Bowie Emergency Medical Center, etc. Many of our local schools are at or above their student enrollment capacity and cannot accommodate an increase in new students. Our local emergency medical center is not a full-service hospital and can have 3 to 4 hour wait times when it is not cold and flu season. Increasing the number of residents that it would serve is not advised, nor is it safe. As a pediatric nurse practitioner with previous work experience at the Bowie Medical Center, in my capacity as a registered nurse, I speak from firsthand experience of the unsafe situation that this proposition presents to the residents of Bowie. The addition of 800 residential units with the Bowie Town Center would add a level of congestion that could make it undesirable for people that do not live within the immediate vicinity of the Bowie Town Center. One of the major reasons that we chose to move our family and businesses to Bowie was due to the retail options that are provided at the Bowie Town Center. It is for the previously mentioned reasons that I asked that the current Sears department store not be converted to residential units, but instead continue to act as a retail space. I appreciate your commitment and service to the city of Bowie. Please do not hesitate to contact me for questions and or concerns. Next one is from Marcella Biggins. Please know that as a longtime Bowie resident, my family members and I are against adding housing to the Sears development. We already have an exorbitant amount of traffic in our already densely populated neighborhoods. Thank you. Next one is from Paul Wells. Stop the overdevelopment in Prince George's County. No to more development on the Sears site. The surrounding infrastructure does not support such additional growth. Next one is from, let's see, I believe it's Sherry Lynn Hoffman. Thank you. Thank you for my comment. I am a lifelong city resident and have lived at 12618 Chandler Lane for 20 years now. My parents are original and current owners at 2246 Hindle Lane. First, nothing should be done that adversely impacts BJ's or Red Robin restaurants and their parking. The site map seemed to include those areas. I'm hoping I am wrong. All three of us were strongly opposed to marketplace apartments and feel that the city council really screwed up the city and betrayed the residents by approving the 225 apartments to be built there. We are vehemently opposed to the dense development of the Sears site. 800 residential units is way too dense. Such a development would be as bad or worse than the dense new development in Crofton, just over the Anne Arundel County line, that only has a fraction of total units dedicated to elder care and assisted living. And that sort of housing is the only new housing that the city of Bowie needs. Perhaps 200 units in total, in a building no taller than 4 stories high. Bowie should not aim to be Annapolis or Washington, D.C. in density. Residents do not want yet another dense residential development pushed through the various councils. The city of Bowie is a suburb of metro areas. The city's attraction has in part been its open space, or it was. The open space has been destroyed rapidly in recent years. Many city residents were opposed to the new town centers, mall, and the destruction of Old Forest area when the issue came up years ago. The city and county didn't listen, and the big mall was built, with other commercial development subsequently added in the immediate area. Such development made the area a high-traffic area at all times of the day, and the upgrade to Route 197 became part of the Bowie Speedway, where motorists often zip through at 50 miles an hour or more. Speeding is a huge problem on Route 197. One can get tailgated if trying to obey the speed limits. The only blessing is that Route 197 has remained only 2 lanes as it passes Tasker Middle School and Fox Hill Park, making those areas safer as the traffic is forced to slow down to the speed limit. There are crosswalks on Route 197 that are very dangerous for pedestrians to attempt crossing. I can personally attest to the danger at the 2 biggest mall crosswalks. There is only a pedestrian bridge on the apartment side of Route 197 and nothing further up. Additional traffic on Northview Drive and Route 197 does not make pedestrian traffic safer. Residents pointed out that traffic in the area would increase, burdening the communities in the immediate area. My parents live in Heather Hills, and again, I can personally attest to the area's increase in traffic. It is difficult to get into Route 197, which is the only way that residents around old Route 197 can leave their homes for travel into the city of Bowie and beyond. Years ago, my mom was involved in a car accident while trying to make a left turn from Holiday Lane onto Route 197. Traffic on Route 197 is heavier and faster now. 800 residential units and/or hotel would put an unreasonable burden on local roads and residents. These days, it is incredibly risky to attempt that same left turn. People speed up as quickly as they can after each stoplight and often run the yellow and even red lights. We Bowie residents do not need or want townhomes on the Sears site. Townhomes usually mean families, and families mean children, and more children in the area will overburden schools and other resources. Plus, the mall will not be enhanced if it becomes essentially the backyard for kids. Loitering can already be a problem in local malls, which deters shoppers. The city and county councils need to remember that they've already added a lot of apartment across from the mall and well over 1,000 units of housing at Melford, which is and has been destroying older forested area adjacent to the river. All the hardscape is not healthy for the river and environment. I'm fairly certain that developers have not been required to build with permeable asphalt, which would help slightly. The local area around Sears already has 6 hotels with excess capacity, with 4 of those being only a 5-minute drive away. Melford and the small, time's up on that one. Next one is from Raymond Poole from the Glen Allen neighborhood. Let it be on the record that I am against any residential dwellings on the old Sears building area. We do not need more residents, cars, and crime in this city. How much is enough? How much traffic? How little infrastructure development? How many broken promises by the old dinosaur mayor and now Tim Adams? This city is slowly going downhill, as I have lived here 55 years, when many, including yourself, I'm sure have not. Do we really need more retail with so many abandoned properties now? Ridiculous. Next one is from Derwin Conwell. How about a senior citizen fitness center with saunas, hot tubs, and massage tables located on the Sears property? Next one is from Barbara Gergel. As a Bowie tax-paying resident for about 30 years, I don't think the development is needed or necessary. It took years to get that area developed. It doesn't seem to have been planned very well. A few food places do well, but the rest of the shopping area, not so well. Developing an area just because you can doesn't seem to work out very well. Next one is from Sarah Sims. Thank you for inviting public comment about the Sears property at the Bowie Town Center. I live 2 miles from the town center and appreciate its convenience and variety of shopping opportunities. I am in favor of any redevelopment that will enhance the property and the city of Bowie. Residential units and/or a hotel would be a positive development for the community. I am not concerned about road traffic, as some residents have voiced. I do not see that residences would negatively impact the traffic in the community. Next one is from Sue Lavera. Greetings, Mayor and Council. Some of you are familiar with the idea I presented last week to the city's planning board. Also mentioned in the summary article in the Bowie Blade that I strongly encourage you to think way outside of the box. The repurposing of the Sears building as well as the entire space of the Bowie Town Center. It is apparent that the concept and seeming reality is underway again for more housing. No matter the kind of or form of housing, I do not believe any of that is either necessary or desired. I am here to cause good trouble. Thank you, John Lewis. By offering some thoughts, I truly hope you'll consider. Mr. Rossini explained during the planning board meeting that his company, have had hardly any bites on the repurposing of the Sears building. My suggestion is that it be used with the county schools as an alternative learning site. Both Mr. Rossini and the schools, by way of Dr. Golson, CEO, are interested in this potential and are communicating. As of now, the results of this are unknown, but this will be the beginning of some very innovative, exciting, different, and welcome changes for Bowie. How the school repurpose would work is to be seen. I do not know that the school system recognizes that little regarding regular public education will be the same as a result of the coronavirus. Thus, they've begun to think in all new ways. Stay tuned. Reference the entirety of the town center. Imagine for this minute. Close your eyes if that makes it more real. Imagine a car-free zone and a redesigned space as a pedestrian mall with lots of trees and natural plants, lots of places for people of all ages to sit and eat from an increased number of food options. Imagine a gazebo somewhere in the newly created mall where regular performances can be held. If you've been to Millennium Stage at the Kennedy Center, you get the idea. Or maybe better, the center of a village in New England. Think of the chance to have available budding musicians, students to recite their poetry or to sing, or the possibilities are endless. Imagine a play area like at the National Zoo and near the castle of the Smithsonian, where water shoots up in an irregular pattern and timing for kids of all ages to enjoy. Imagine the storefronts. If you shop there, you know there are vacancies. What continues to attract? What is missing? It's a reality that the Wall Chapel area has drawn Bowieites. We do not need to compete or duplicate what's there. Let's complement by developing a more innovative setting and something unlike anything else in Prince George's County. Imagine a place to enjoy smoothies, plant-based or fruit or other. Imagine an old-fashioned designed soda shop for ice cream. Imagine a store which sells fresh herbs and spices along with regular lessons about how to enhance your home cooking. Imagine a new version of Starbucks. Did you know that this chain has community centers as part of some of their locations? Our young people would welcome somewhere to go to gather while enjoying some amenities such as pool tables and other non-electric games, boxing even. Imagine a bowling alley. Imagine a location where seniors or others might gather and be available to local youth for a quick bit of tutoring. Not any formal setup, but like Lucy's of Charlie Brown, the doctor is in, where help with an immediate school problem can be available. Imagine having trades available where students might intern, car repair, nails done, hair done, sewing support to help with mending items, sewing on buttons, fixing hems. There's no end to what might be possible. The youth of Bowie are desperate for a space where they can linger and be with their friends. If the Sears building was an alternative school site, there would be students there. Thus, keep imagining. Imagine no plastic bags allowed throughout this. Imagine an identified path with mile markers to complement what exists near City Hall for walkers, a more obvious connection to the walking path around Allen Pond. Please pay attention to what the Multimodal Task Force is recommending. Finally, but hardly final, imagine a parking area for commuters for local bus pickups, thus avoiding having the big buses in our neighborhoods. Imagine charging stations and multiple spots for your EVs. Next one is from Joshua Wooten, Chair of the Bowie Multimodal Access and Public Spaces subgroup of the Bowie Green Team. Good evening, City Council. My name is Joshua Wooten, and I chair the Bowie Multimodal Access and Public Spaces subgroup of the Bowie Green Team. I am submitting this written testimony on behalf of the MAPS group in favor of Seritage Growth Properties plans to redevelop the Sears property and adjacent parking lots with a mix of commercial and residential development. Our group met with representatives from Seritage in February of 2019 to provide input regarding the redevelopment and came away very pleased with their initial concepts at the time. It is pleasing to see that their current plans and concepts for the redevelopment have not strayed much from that time. There are many aspects of their plans that overlap with the goals of our group. Aspects that provide valuable amenities to the public, such as centralized placemaking spaces, outside eating and drinking provided by commercial establishments, greenery, public art, and multimodal connectivity with an emphasis on walking and biking. Given the current outlook of malls across the country and the potential for decline of the Bowie Town Center area, this multi-use development could help revitalize this space and generate foot traffic, benefiting the area as a whole, with the possibility of making it a destination that's unique and attracts new events and visitors. We are pleased that Seritage has taken the hotel and office buildings off the table, as it doesn't really fit with the rest of the concept they are promoting for the area. In our meeting last year, Seritage expressed that they were open to considering amenities that would mitigate climate change, such as EV infrastructure and energy conservation features in building design. It is pleasing to know that they are open to including these environmentally friendly concepts in their plans. Additionally, they mentioned that they would like to reconnect with our group in the future for more input or feedback, and we appreciate them being open for suggestions to help make the redevelopment more accessible and beneficial for Bowie. In closing, we are positive about what we have heard so far and the willingness of Seritage to listen to our ideas. We ask that you approve their request and that Seritage continue their dialogue with council and Bowie residents to ensure that this area becomes a vibrant space within the city of Bowie. Thank you for your consideration. Next one is from Carrie Bridges. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. I live a half mile from Bowie Town Center and I have been seeing businesses come and go. I prefer not to have any residential housing there that will cause further havoc on our infrastructure, increase the population of our schools, and increase traffic. If we must have residential housing there, I prefer opportunities for seniors. With senior, there is more likely a chance that the 3 previously mentioned concerns will not occur. Thank you for your time and stay safe. And last one is from Talib Asalam. Good afternoon, officials of the City of Bowie. Thank you for the opportunity to address the body regarding the Sears Property redevelopment. Over the last 5 years living in the area, we have noticed rapid development. Surveying the market demand in the DMV, we recognize that it is in response to new Washingtonians who are priced out of the homeowners market. They view Arlington and Alexandria as too costly, and affordable housing in Virginia means longer travel times on 66. With the new Carlton Hub development, Bowie and its surrounding areas appear to be quite desirable. Given that backdrop and the changing economics of retail, developing the Sears property appears very wise, both for the tax base of Bowie, so we can continue to dodge the tax bullet that we recently missed with the county council voting down the homestead tax increase, and for the post-pandemic economic opportunities that could arise. If we decide to redevelop the property, we have to consider the following important factors. Number 1, we cannot allow gingerbread homes to be erected. Developers have been using cheap materials and shoddy designs to throw up homes, throw a little granite on the countertops and call the homes luxury, then charge tremendous prices to the new Washingtonians who want to move here to take advantage of our great area. There has to be a standard that matches and improves the property value of the Levittown communities and preserves the value of the homes of the unincorporated areas as well. Number 2, developing Sears will mean widening 197, increasing bus routes along that corridor and directly to New Carrollton, and possibly extending the Purple Line to Crofton. Otherwise, we will have traffic problems that the city has never seen before. Number 3, water. 800 dwellings could mean at least 2,000 more people. If an average housing unit across the U.S. uses 260 gallons per day, 800 units means 208,000 gallons of additional water and sewer capacity will be needed. Where will that water come from? Furthermore, it has been noted that the scientists can monitor the severity of the pandemic by the biocomposition of the wastewater. There may be additional water treatment retrofit needed to address the potential that absent a vaccine, at least 88 of those 2,000 people, given a 4.4% positivity rate, could test positive, and through the water systems, the virus could be aerosolized. Number 4, University of Maryland Health Center will need to be expanded to accommodate not just regular healthcare demand, but also the increased demand due to COVID-19. Number 5, the schools. What is their current capacity? It is very likely that the new residents to Bowie will be families rather than single people. Number 6, also, what are the types of businesses we will attract or upstart? They cannot be incentivized by tax breaks. We have to collectively rethink how we economically incentivize native business generation while attracting high economic yield businesses to our area. There is much more, but we at least wanted to highlight that the city planning and civil engineering needed to make this redevelopment worth The investment should be thoughtfully considered, and as a resident within the unincorporated area of Bowie and a management consultant, I would be more than happy to offer my services if you believe it would help plan this well. Thank you for your time. And that is all the comments for this evening.
Thank you, City Clerk. I appreciate you going through that. Excuse me?
Just a really quick question for you, Walter. I just got a precedent about some text messages that were sent in. I'm not sure if you received any of those.
I did not receive any text messages.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll open up for any questions that we may have. I will start with District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think anyone who lives in Bowie who knows me at all knows that I've spent the better part of the last 5 years fighting most development projects, mainly on the grounds that most major development projects tend to add to congestion, tend to impact schools and infrastructure, but the lion's share of the impact fees that the developers pay, which in fairness to the developers, those impact fees are considerable. The majority of those impact fees go to the county's coffers, but don't end up necessarily getting earmarked for schools or infrastructure or roads within the city of Bowie. The city only receives a portion of one of the impact fees related for public safety, which is great, but the lion's share of the money for the major infrastructure really doesn't end up, for the most part, coming back to Bowie. It goes into other county priorities elsewhere. The tax revenue that these folks pay, a quarter of it comes to us, just like all tax revenue, which is great, but it's never enough to really make a significant change when it comes to the major infrastructure issues we face. All that being said, this particular development project is a little bit different because it's not simply clearing a forest or clearing a field and adding a subdivision that doesn't already exist. This project, and first and foremost, about redeveloping a section of our town center, which is a critical existing economic engine for the city. It's a major employer. It also is a huge contributor to the city's tax base. I often hear residents say, oh, the city only thinks about its tax revenue. But here's the thing. Tax revenue is how we pay our bills. And if we don't get that money from one place, we either have to cut city services or get the money from somewhere else. So if our businesses fail, they represent a significant portion of our tax income. That means higher taxes for everyone else. We're one of the few municipalities in the region that has not had to raise its tax rate in 11 years, while we've also expanded services. That's almost unheard of, but we've achieved that in large part by expanding our business tax base. So this particular project is really critical in making sure that the whole town center is able to move forward into the next several decades without becoming blighted, without having too many stores fail and becoming a ghost town and costing the city money and losing jobs and taking down, what is one of the most important business sectors in the city. Some of the problems that we're facing locally are, in fact, many of them related to national closures. Just this year, the following big name brand companies have declared bankruptcy and are planning on closing stores across the country, including locally. Brooks Brothers, Joseph A. Banks, JCPenney's, California Pizza Kitchen, Lord & Taylor, Loft, Papyrus, Lane Bryant, Ann Taylor, New York & Company, Lucky Brand Jeans, GNC, Le Pain Quotidien, Tuesday Morning, Neiman Marcus, J. Crew, Models, and Pier 1 Imports. And those are just a handful of the name brand businesses that closed this year, some of it exacerbated by the pandemic. We've lost tons of other businesses, including Sears, here and across the country. So the retail challenges we face as a city are going to continue, just as they're continuing everywhere else. If you look at any of the successful towns around us, none of them are building just malls and just shopping. that no longer exists. That is gone. That is dead. That is the dodo. It's not coming back. Moving forward, any major retail, particularly high-end retail, is going to have to be supported by residential. There's no other way to do it. Unless we become a communist state and the government decides to take over by force and run all the shopping centers, which is probably not going to happen, and is probably not desirable either. Unless we do that, we're going to continue to have, like it or not, privately owned land, privately owned businesses, and they have to make decisions around their own profitability, okay? So the fact is, if we want the town center to succeed, we need to support a redevelopment, and that redevelopment is inevitably going to involve housing. There is no way around it, absolutely no way around it. I'm very, very happy that Seritage and their representatives have been working with the city's multimodal advisory, multimodal and public spaces committee, MAPS, had to think about that. I really appreciate the feedback that they gave. A lot of residents have given us some great outside the box ideas. And I know Seritage, and I know Mr. Antonetti and Mr. Ursini, and I know that they're going to think about these things and genuinely try to incorporate a lot of these ideas. But I also know that they are dealing with basic economic math, and they're going to have some form of residential. I'm going to defer to my colleagues to move forward and get us going tonight, because I know it's getting late. My two major things: one, I'm perfectly comfortable with the applicant's request for deferring the 10% workforce housing question to the preliminary subdivision or preliminary planning stage of this. I'm fine with that. I don't know that I can support the whole 800 number for the units. I'd like to negotiate that down some. And then finally, I do think, if I'm not mistaken, that there may be consensus tonight for us to take the information we've been given, have some further conversations with residents, with stakeholders, with the developer, and possibly make a decision on this on September 8, which, if I'm not mistaken, is okay with the applicant's timeline. It's not going to severely jeopardize them, but it can give us a little bit more time to percolate with this information, communicate with residents, get a little more feedback, get some ideas out there, and move forward. And that is all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to Councilman from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everybody for being here this evening to, pardon me, to present and to share your thoughts on where you want to be with the property. A couple of things. I'll echo my colleague from District 1, Mr. Estev, regarding the fact that something needs to be done. We're in a situation where we have a changing environment, a changing market for retail, and we need to address some of that with evolution of that property. So a couple of comments, though. I still think there's a lot of issues still that need some resolution. I'm a little concerned about the numbers. The 800 is a lot. I'd like to ask staff, if you could, to help me out with kind of a what-if scenario. I know that the property as a whole, that entire area, is listed for a cap of 1420, of which we have 130 units remaining for housing, and the unit increase would be 670 to take it up to 2,000. So the question I have for staff is, what's the process and what's it look like with the neighbors, if you will? What would have to happen when somebody comes along and says, well, you know, the LA Fitness or whatever it is, or Macy's, has determined that they cannot make a go of it, and we need to convert some of that space down there, and the only way to do it is with residential. Could staff explain to me how that would work in terms of the usage here that is being proposed and the impact on the remainder of the property?
Sure. They would have to go through the same process that this applicant is going through to request, an amendment to the basic plan and to go through the steps, the 4 steps that were mentioned earlier.
So we'd be in a position where we could be looking at another similar request in the not too distant future, who knows when. But if one of our other retail areas isn't performing up to speed.
That's correct.
Okay, so that gives me pause when we start looking at these numbers. If we can expect that down the road we'll have some additional requests, I think we need to be mindful of that as we're looking at this proposal. There are a number of issues that I think we need to have some close attention paid to. Parking with this number of units. I know that there are requirements according to the standards, but I want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have overflow parking from residential adversely affecting the parking that's purportedly available for the retail that exists currently, which could have an adverse impact. So I want to make sure that we talk about that at some point. Workforce housing, I think that's important. I'm not quite sure I understand the argument of why we can't put a cap in now. It seems to me 10% now or 10% later is still 10%. And I'm not sure the value it provides to the applicant for postponing that. Another comment I want to make is about the need for true mixed use, and what I don't want to see, I should say, is a parcel here with apartments, a parcel over there with retail, a parcel over there with hotel, and a parcel somewhere else with office space. I think this, and I think it was mentioned in one of the letters, or at least a couple of letters, that we have a need for a truly mixed use environment where you walk out and you see retail on the ground floor that supports both business or hotels or residential that's above, so that you have a true lived-in feel for that neighborhood as a center. Otherwise, it's just somebody who lives back behind the retail center or someone who works over on the other side of the retail center. It's not working in it, it's not part of it. So I think that we need to have some discussions about that to ensure that we're moving in that direction. And I don't have a reason to believe that Seritage is not supportive of that, but I do think we need to have some conversation to ensure that we get that as part of the path forward. And I think we need to consider that while we're considering numbers for this proposal. Something else that was mentioned, either directly or indirectly, was concerns about security, whether it's for the retail environment or for the housing. I know that there have been ongoing issues at nearby apartment complex that I don't think we need repeated, and I think that's done through design and presence and layout for the actual constructions. So I think we need to pay attention to that. And I want to ask the applicant what their thoughts are, what they've learned from their interactions with the school so far.
So Ms. Livera made the introduction by way of email. I have responded, but I haven't been able to have a direct conversation yet with Dr. Goldson.
All right, well, we'll look forward to hearing. I'd like to hear some more on that, and perhaps we could do that before we move this forward. I don't know what the specifics look like, but I do think that we need something different than just a cookie cutter solution. I think we need something that fully integrates, and there may be some uses such as that. Clearly, open space, multimodal, I think it's very important. We want to make sure this is integrated into the transportation systems. So I will leave that as my commentary there. I do think that it would be a good idea to give a little bit more time to have further discussions on this before coming to closure, perhaps at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to the Councilwoman from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. I just want to thank everyone for coming before council tonight and presenting. I echo the sentiments of my colleague from District 1, everything that he kind of said earlier. I pretty much rings true of everything that we're looking at with this particular parcel of land and this property. I've had a number of conversations with residents from District 4 in the sense, and I think that the sentiment kind of is the same, where residents, would prefer really not to see apartment housing or complexes and things of that sort, or a bunch of, I guess you would say, low income slated housing, speaking on behalf of District 4 here. So I think that's the sentiment that, we're seeing from District 4. I want to echo Dufour in terms of, having a conversation with Dr. Goldstein. I'd love to see where that conversation ends up and to follow up with us on how that goes and what you learn from that. But I think what the goal here is that I think we're all in agreement that the Bowie Town Center really does need a deep revival. And to Dufour's comments, what we don't want to see is a apartment over there, some stores over there, and just, kind of just intentional unthoughtfulness on how you approach this development. And I think you are approaching it with good faith here. So yeah, those are the rest of my comments. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. I'll go to the Councilwoman, Ingrid Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have any comments except to say that I would certainly like to hear more feedback from the residents before I can really make an informed decision. Although I like the project, I just still have a few concerns, but I'd really like to hear from the public. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Councilman Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say this. I did have the pleasure of meeting with this group, Seritage, sometime during my last term as council member. And I like the project. I love it. I want to say I was one of those council members who voted against the marketplace apartments. One, because the residents didn't want it. It was the wrong place for apartments to go. And having conversation with Joe Minard, our planning director, he indicated and gave us all a full education and knowledge of the master plan and how the master plan is to work. The master plan does not allow housing to go at marketplace, but yet it does at the Bowie Town Center. We know that the units are somewhere in at the Bowie Town Center in the upwards of, I want to say 2,200, somewhere around there. I can't remember totally. And I want to speak to Councilmember Wolfley's comment earlier tonight when he stated that, if LA Fitness or Macy's or one of the other retailers there at the Bowie Town Center on the Washington Prime Group side of the house were to come forward and ask for the same request, then yes, they would have to go through this process again. But I don't want this group here to be punished for any possible future activity. If we as the council say, hey, we collectively say, we don't want to see any more than 1,000 units over there, period. During our term as council, this council says we don't want to see anything more than 1,000 units. Then if Seritage says they're going to build 800 and then someone else comes in and we cap them at 2, I don't want to punish one for the other. I love the project. The Sears building, I've been asked for a number of residents for a number of years, when is that eyesore going away? I know initially Seritage had wanted, they would love to have rented or leased that property out, but no one's looking for those big box locations. Pre-pandemic, and also speak to Dufour's statement earlier, pre-pandemic, the shopping center parking lots were empty. They were empty. People are buying online. Big box stores are failing. So they're redesigning their methods of reaching their customers. Mixed-use projects work around the nation, right up the road here, as we've gotten a number of letters tonight mentioning or referencing Crofton or Wauchapel. That looks great. It works well. Annapolis Town Center works well. I just want to be certain that we do not get a grade level C or B product at that Bowie Town Center. We have high incomes. We have people that want to move and into Bowie who choose to rent as opposed to buying. And I like to see a quality project or product for those residents. Now, I know there's been some conversations, and we've kicked it around tonight and talked about workforce housing or affordable housing. Workforce housing, I would be open to. Affordable, low income, no. It would defeat the purpose. The purpose is to revitalize the Bowie Town Center. Placing low income housing or affordable housing at a site to where you're trying to build retail, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I have had conversation with many people at the county. A gentleman, Larry Hintz, I don't know if many of you are familiar with Larry. He is with the EDC, formerly the Economic Development Corporation for the county. And he says in order for these town centers or shopping centers that you want to keep alive, in order for them to survive, you have to create density by bringing in residential. Otherwise, we're going to have the Largo Boulevard on our hands here, and we don't want that here in Bowie. So it is, I would definitely support this project, and I would definitely like to ask the developer to explore maybe coming down a few on your numbers, but if not, I could live with the 800. But I'm always open. I'm going to talk to you guys about coming down some as well. I know initially the project had a hotel in it. Can I ask you guys what happened to the hotel?
So during our due diligence, we looked at hotels extensively, and as I'm sure you're aware, the Marriott Courtyard opened up, and I think it's done relatively well, but I think it's made it difficult for us to attract another hotel. And I think given the current environment, the hotel industry is reeling. So difficult for me to answer that right now. Pre-pandemic, our thoughts were that it would be difficult to attract a hotel brand, especially of a upscale nature that I'm sure you would want to see here. So I think we'll have to see. As with everything, we're going to continue to explore, but up to now, I would say that a hotel would be difficult for us to bring to fruition.
Okay. I can understand. If you would still continue to keep that on your radar, and as we move forward through this, maybe you could consider or reconsider such. Also, I can't remember completely, but correct me if I'm wrong. Was there any conversation about a movie theater? Or someone was talking about a movie theater, some sort, maybe an arts type theater of some sort. Okay.
Not from us. We weren't discussing a movie theater. The parcel's just not large enough to really contemplate that.
Okay. And like my colleague said tonight, and I'm certain I'm familiar with your project and things that you've done previously. I'm certain that I would hope that you would want to develop a fine project for Bowie. I can say this, that the projects that you've done in the past have been, in my opinion, rather stellar. We do have Melford coming online very soon, and St. John's Properties are delivering what I believe is a really good project. We have up the road there, South Lake, and not yet sure about South Lake, not yet sure. But I will tell you that Bowie Town Center needs redevelopment or revitalization, and you guys coming there, getting rid of that Sears building and putting up some fine units would be something that would totally turn that town center around. And yet I could see the Washington Crime Group having 800 units there. They can then attract finer retailers to come in and fill their vacancies. And then yet the residents of Bowie will have quality shopping. So it all works together. And I could definitely support this project. I do know that someone tonight said that they may want, a few of us said tonight that they wanted to perhaps pause this until a future meeting. I'm fine with whatever my colleagues like to do, but I want to put it out there now, today, and for the record, I do support the project. I like it. We have to revitalize and bring life back to that Bowie Town Center, or we're going to have what they have over there in Largo. And I don't want that here in Bowie. And it's right in the center with so much housing and so many people living right here. And it could be just an incubator of crime. And I think what you guys are bringing on will prevent a lot of that from happening. Thank you guys, and be safe out there.
Thank you, Councilman. Council member from District 4. I'm sorry. Council member, my Mayor Pro Tem from District 3, if you would, please.
So much, Mr. Mayor. I'll say a couple comments because I think my colleagues hit this right on the head. As you know, the Bowie Town Center sits right in the heart of District 3. This is a really important project to us, right? It's important to the residents, not just here in the city of Bowie and in District 3, but also regionally, right? People in Prince George's County want to be able to start going to shopping centers that are revitalized. They kind of look like those entities that are in Montgomery County and throughout the country. And as we see happening in Anne Arundel County and throughout the nation, this form of mixed use really works. It really kind of brings life, not just in a retail way, but some housing for folks to come play and that's our belief. This is having an impact for more than just sorry, there's some background noise. I'm not sure who's making it. Cool.
Councilman Gardner, could you go on mute, please?
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. This isn't just going to be important for the next couple years in Bowie, but as we look for the next decade and 2 decades from now, as you know, we get that new MARC train and that station developing by Bowie State. As Bowie State continues to grow as a university, as you know, this area becomes more interconnected with the Purple Line coming. This really is about the future of our city, about the future of our region, and putting ourselves from a county standpoint as a powerhouse. So I agree with my colleagues on this. Obviously, there's a lot more discussion that we have to debate. There's a lot more discussion that we're going to have. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table this discussion until September 8th.
I would like to second that motion.
Okay, well, the mayor has opened it up for a motion, and we have moved and second at this time. Discussion at this time, and I think most have said, but I'd like to say a few words right here. When you look at the statement of justification for this, one of the things that truly comes across is we're talking about a project where people can live, work, and play. We're talking about making this something that is going to be extremely positive for the city of Bowie. So along those lines, I understand, I agree with most of the questions that a lot of my fellow council members have asked and said, and I do have some questions, concerns, density, but more importantly, making sure we take into consideration the concerns of our constituents and in the city, that we do something that still makes it a positive for the city, i.e. that it creates opportunities not only for the city and new residents, but also something that enhances the Bowie Town Center. because again, we all agree it does need revitalization, but we want to do it in a very, very smart way. And so I look forward to talking with you a little more about that. I think we've all kind of share some of the exact same ideas, and that is looking at the density, looking at what we'll need to do with it, where we are, and just making sure it's the quality of a project that I believe you're putting forward to do that would make the city proud to have that. So we need to make sure that we, again, take our constituents into consideration, make sure we look at what the densities will be, make sure we talk about workforce housing, all of those things are things that I hope we'll have a chance to talk about and look into before our next meeting. So having said that, if there is no other discussion at this time, I will call for the vote. All in favor, reply with an aye.
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 Any opposed? Same, right? The motion carries. Thank you. And I want to say thank you again for coming and presenting. I'd like to thank staff for all the work they did on this as well. You all done a great job, and we look forward to talking in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, I would like to move on to item C, the transportation priority list. And Mr. Minor?
Yes, sir.
Turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good
and
evening.
Members of the council. I'm Joe Minor, the planning director. And this item tonight is to review with you the transportation priority list. It's an annual step that council takes. The real goal here is to provide a letter to the state highway administration about the city's road priorities, and also a letter to the county executive and county council about the county road facilities and transit facilities that serve the city. As we provided a memo to you dated July 30th, which basically recycles the material from last year's letter. There really have been very little changes or very few changes over the past year. And I didn't, in the interest of time tonight, I didn't want to review every aspect of that memo, but you have the memo, you have the county council, the county executive's priority list as part of this package. Also, we have the letter that was written last year to the state transportation secretary. I do have to admit that I inadvertently left off the letter to County Executive Also Brooks that we sent last year, so that was not in your backup material, but all of the priorities are listed in the memo, and we can provide that letter from last year in your package this week if you want to review that. So basically, I wanted to just mention that the city's top priorities for transportation with respect to state roads are Maryland Route 197. That's in the design stage right now. Also Maryland Route 450. And both of those projects have actually moved back in the county's transportation priority list. They've gone to a lower priority. And then in terms of county roads, the highest priority of the city has been Church Road. And as council's aware that you all have made a offer to the county to donate some of the land along Church Road down their Church Road Park to try to see if that project would move along in the county's capital program. And we haven't heard anything back from that. I know that there was no actual decision made during the county budget process this year, but really the purpose of doing the priority letters now is to get in our input at both the state and the county for the next budget cycle. So really we would want to reiterate that same concern that we did in the letter last year. There are also recommendations for transit improvements to try to bring the county's bus system out to Bowie, primarily to serve the central portion of the city as a starting point, and then to actually make other connections to other parts of the county using the county's bus system. and also to try to encourage planning for using US Route 50 as an eventual transit corridor. So the city has made that comment year after year, and it continues to be the policy of the council. And so with that, Mayor, I just wanted to briefly describe what those priorities are. The memo does have a few more details in it, and nothing's new. Those projects are the same as what's been in the list for the past few years. And so I'm here to answer any questions or take any comments that you might have on transportation priorities. And what we would intend to do is draft a letter to both the state and the county, and then put it through your package through the council poll, and get those letters authorized to send, and that would be your position going forward for the next year. So that concludes the staff presentation, and as I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Hey,
Hello?
you're back on.
Oh, okay, thank you. I don't know, this is gonna be strange, but city attorney, I had to hit your mic for me to come on. That's no joke. I don't understand
That is
that
so
at all.
weird. You're free to have my mic.
As
do
you
whatever you
probably
want with
saw. Hey, I apologize. Again, I was simply saying, Joe, just thank you so very much for all the detailed information you provide. Appreciate all you do. At this time, kind of, as we move forward, I would like to open up again if we have any questions. Councilmember District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Meinert, for the presentation. I was very happy to see the Old Bowie sidewalk improvement projects on our list, and appreciate the continued good work you do. On a very real note, I do want to put it out there that we have been told now for a number of years by state and federal elected leaders that shared transportation dollars will continue to dry up. In general, state and county budgets are going to be in a bad situation moving forward. And so I think it's useful for all of us to just kind of percolate on that reality, not to just be all doom and gloom, but to set expectations that projects that haven't been funded for years are likely not going to be funded in an even worse fiscal situation moving forward. And it's going to be important that we keep that in mind for planning purposes moving forward. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to Councilman District 2.
Good evening again. Thank you for the work you've done so far on this. Couple quick questions. Can you enlighten me on where we stand with our 197 project? I know that there's been some rework in terms of the design engineering. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, sir. The state appointed a new project manager early this year, and the project has started to move through the design process again. As council's aware, they had to go back and almost start from scratch because they just ran into some cost prohibitive engineering problems with the previous design, and had to kind of go back and reconsider that. So what I was told by the new project manager, who we're familiar with from a previous job that he did here on Route 301, He's saying that he's hoping that they'll be to the preliminary design plan by the end of this year, and that's usually 30% of design. And at that time, they would be willing to come out and show the public what that design is and have public meetings, and the city would facilitate getting the notice out about those meetings.
Great, thank you. So the next project that's out there that's near and dear to everybody's heart is our Corridor 301. And I know that there's, you know, that's a big question for the long term, but I believe that there are some efforts in the short term for some mitigation strategies or tactics, I guess you should say, for some improvements for the short term. Can you speak to any of those efforts? Yep, you're on mute.
Councilwoman Wolfley, I know that the state did make some lane striping improvements along 301 south of Route 50. Basically, you're allowed to now go all the way down if you're going southbound from US 50 towards 197, you're allowed to go all the way down the right-hand lane and use that lane for additional capacity. Other than that, when we'll see some improvements from developers down at Excalibur and Mill Branch Road. When that Mill Branch crossing development gets started, there will be some lane widening and turn lanes put in. And so the state was looking to make some capacity improvements in conjunction with that to get the traffic to move through that intersection south of Mill Branch Road. So it's going to happen incrementally.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Joe. Moving on to our Mayor Pro Tem, District 3.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I think my colleague from District 2 just mentioned this, but just for my own clarification. So it seems like 197 may be coming online. I know we had some pushbacks. I know we discussed that in some of our meetings with state officials. Is there anything that we need to do? Because I feel like I remember something from our meetings that we needed to actually take action on something at some point with the county. Am I wrong in that estimation?
Well, I think the most important thing we can do is to continue to have that project showing up high on the county's priority list. And I mentioned earlier that it did drop. It dropped from number 4 to number 6 in the county's priorities. And so I think from an elected official standpoint, as much communication from the city council to your counterparts at the county would really encourage and make a showing to the state that everyone is on the same page and that project really needs to move it actually into construction as soon as it's designed.
Sounds good. I know we've been battling this S-curve. It's really important to the folks in District 3. I know we also gave off that part to kind of incentivize. Did the county not take us up on that offer? Did we not move up in their budget phase at all?
I think the input came a little too late in the budget process. The county is just such a huge, monolithic bureau or branch of government that by the time our input came, I don't think there was sufficient time for the Public Works Department to really assess that. I think they're pleased, generally, when I talk to their staff, that the city is willing to do something, and I really need to follow up with their people, their planners, and find out what we can expect next year. But I do think it's going to have that catalyst effect that the council envisioned. We just need to make sure that the right people are looking at this and trying to accelerate the plan.
Sounds good. Yeah, agreed. I think we need some more pressure on that, and if we can get it next budget, that's going to be fine. But would like to see that done because I think it starts the conversation around Church Road from a holistic standpoint. My last question is about the 214 pedestrian bridge. I know I sit on the Maryland Transportation Planning Board under COG, and I know we gave some money to the city for a feasibility study for that pedestrian bridge. The question is, did the city in TPB, I can't remember the exact number because we give out a lot of these transportation land use connection program grants. Does that cover our full feasibility study, or does the city have to also put up some money in that commitment?
It does cover the full cost of the feasibility study, and I mentioned it in the memo that you got from the city manager that we had been awarded this opportunity by the Council of Governments, the TPB, and it does help to implement one of the items that's on your transportation priority list, and it follows up on the Trails Master Plan, where the Trails Plan identified what a critical link that is to get across Route 214, because you have the South Lake development that's going to be constructed south of 214, and they're going to actually construct part of the county-wide master plan trail system through their development. So there will be a lot of need for a safe crossing of 214, and that's what the feasibility study is going to give us.
Yep, glad that we were able to get that done in TPP. Those are all my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to the Councilwoman from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thanks, Joe, for all the work that's gone into this proposal. Truly appreciate it. I don't really have any questions at this time because I've really been asking staff questions for the last couple of weeks when it comes to transportation and things of that sort. So I don't have any questions at this time. I think it's kind of clear what our priorities are and what we need to do as a council, and kind of which buttons we need to press and where. So I think those are just actions for some of us. So I just want to thank you for putting this together.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Joe, and thanks so much for your report. Always thorough and always appreciated.
Thank you.
Just one thing, can we add to the county list the replacement on Governor Bridge Road?
Right, that's currently in the county's program, but as I understand it, the county is not going to move forward with it, and the city is on record as sending a letter saying that we wanted the county to try to do everything they could to get that project back. And so if we want to say in this letter that that's a vital thing that the city wants to reiterate, that's certainly a comment that we can amplify in the letter.
Right, yes, that'd be great.
Is that it, Councilwoman?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Councilman Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to first thank you, Joe, for the information. As always, you're always quite informative. I don't have any questions or anything in addition to what you've already provided us. On a personal note, I wanted to say to you, a few months ago, I met someone that was quite helpful to me on a project, and she was very, very kind and throughout it and very professional. And I later found out that it was your wife, and I just wanted to say, tell her I say hello, and I hope you all are being safe during this pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Minor, I and myself, I think the other council members have covered everything. As we look at drafting that letter that we will put forward, I think we'll be able to look at all those issues, make sure that we look at what our priorities are, and get your input further on what we think we can get done and what we should be getting done. As always, you did do a great job putting this together, so I just want to say thank you as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I believe there is no action for us to take this evening on that. So let us move to, do we need to take any action today? We've had the hearing on the transportation priority list. Do we need to take action today?
it would help to have a recommendation or a vote to support the recommendations in the memo, which basically are to reiterate the priorities listed in there from last year. And as I mentioned, I'll provide the draft letter for your approval through the council poll, but it would be helpful to have a motion supporting the recommendations in the memo tonight.
Okay, well, before we do that, City Clerk, were there any public comments that we needed to hear on this?
No, Mayor, there was nothing submitted for this item.
Okay, great. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor, I move that we support the recommendations in the transportation priorities.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? If not, let's call for the vote. All in favor with an aye? Aye.
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 Opposed, the same favor? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again, Joe. Appreciate it.
Good
All
evening.
right, moving on to item D, adoption of resolution 57-20. I will turn the mic over to Mayor Pro Tem Waffle from District 3.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Let me start out by thanking city staff, especially Maddie, for this. Some of our community activists who are really big on climate change, and BG, obviously, for finalizing the plan. This has been a long time in the making. I'm glad that we were able to finally talk about this today, but also hopefully move forward. So just to give the residents some background, on July 1st, 2019, the Maryland PSC, the Public Service Commission, issued an order which allowed BGE and other Maryland utilities the opportunity to participate in several EV programs to increase the adoption of EVs across the state of Maryland. As some of my colleagues know, Maryland is part of a coalition of states that has already committed to drastically increasing the number of EVs on the road over the next 5 years. Our contribution and our goal is to have 300,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2025. So essentially what this resolution will do in the attached proposal from BGE is that it will install and maintain chargers at no cost at the city of Bowie, both at City Hall and at Kent Hill Center. Additionally, BGE will install a new meter to cover all energy costs associated with the chargers. In my opinion, this is really important to not just furthering and combating climate change, but also embracing our vital role as a municipality and a major player in adopting this electric vehicle model, and also helping our state reach its goal of 300,000 EVs. So, Mr. Mayor, with that, I will take any questions or start a discussion.
I think we've lost you, Mayor.
Yep.
Pro Tem, I didn't hear the last portion of what you said.
Said I would entertain any questions or discussion on this matter before pushing it to a vote.
Okay, I would go around again, if we could. Councilman from District 1, any questions, comment?
I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman from District 2?
Yes, thank you. A couple of questions for those who may not be aware. I'm a big fan of EVs as well, and have proven it by actually driving one on a regular basis. So this is something that's been near and dear to me for quite some time in terms of advancing this, and I think it's a great opportunity. I guess the question I have is, I wanted to check with staff on who's going to pay for the electricity on this. Did I hear correctly that it was BG&E? Nope. No.
Good evening, everyone. So basically what this project is that, as Councilmember Waffle said, it is something that the Public Service Commission authorized the different, like Pepco, Exelon, basically Exelon, which is the mother company of BG&E and Pepco, to expand the EV infrastructure for the 300,000 cars that the state of Maryland wants to have by 2025. So what they gave them authority to do was to create something called the EV Smart program. And now the EV Smart program has various different components to it, but the one that interests us right now is the one that's related to public EV charging stations. And basically what they will come and do is that with the city, negotiating with the city some minor details, we will let them have space in 2 of our locations. In this case, it'd be City Hall and the Kent Hill Center. And what they do is they will put in the infrastructure, everything. We will not have to put a dime. They have a special rate that they must charge. Now, the people that will come to these EV charging stations are residents, the public in general. And they will have special rates based on rate of hour. So in other words, when they're charging will depend how much they're going to pay. There will be 2 different types of chargers. There's going to be level 2 chargers, which are the ones that take about an hour or so to charge. And then you've got what they call the DC fast chargers, which take about 15 minutes. Each one of these different chargers have different rates, but they will be the person will come in, take a credit card, you know, like you're going to a gas station, basically. Charge, and you can charge your car. And pretty much that's the max, the whole project.
Thank you. So what's the charging network for the end user? Is that like ChargePoint or
No, they're
Green Lots?
No, they're working with a group called Green Lot.
It is Green Lot, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So, so Green Lots, that's great. The next question is, you mentioned that we have users anticipated, just general public residents and the like. Consideration for city vehicles in terms of availability and access?
In the case of city vehicles, that's a different proposition because currently what we are doing is Community Services has recently been authorized to buy an additional charging station that is going to be being put behind City Hall where the employee entrance is. And we are also in the process of purchasing 3 EV cars. So technically, we could use the public charging stations, but we have our own, so we would not necessarily need to use that.
Now, I noted in the resolution that there was a call for a fast charger here at City Hall. Is that dual use, concurrent, or is it just two standards?
We could mix and match, so we could get 2 level 1 chargers and 2 fast chargers. Or we could just simply get 1 fast charge, 1 DC fast charge, and 1 level 2 charge. So it's up to us to kind of negotiate with BG&E what we want, because it also means how many spaces we're going to have.
Right. So as a point of reference from being an actual user, in the value for a level 2 charger is fine for someone who's coming to a location and anticipates spending some time there. Mm-hmm. And say if you're going to be at a location such as your office for 4 hours or something, 8 hours, whatever your shift may be, a level 2 charger adds value. However, I think the real value is in having DC fast chargers for the majority of the public who needs a charge. For example, I don't know too many people who are going to leave their home so they could drive over to City Hall, plug in, and wait for 4 hours to charge their vehicle, and then come back and get it. Instead, the fast charge solution is definitely what someone would be looking for in that realm. With that in mind, can we modify this such that we have a fast charger at both one at Ken Hill and one here at City Hall, so that we have multiple locations, but also ensure that we have fast charging distributed as well?
And that's what BG likes to do. They like to have both fast chargers and the DC and the level 2 chargers in the same space.
Okay.
So for people who want to stay there a little longer and for people who just want to come in 15 minutes and go out. So we can have both at both sites.
Okay. All right, good, because the resolution and the images aren't consistent. So if we can modify this proposal, I think that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving over to Councilwoman in District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would definitely say thank you to my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Boafo, for your diligent work on this, and thank you to staff. No comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comment.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gardner. Councilman Gardner, you're still on mute.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. And I wanted to thank Mayor Pro Tem Boafo for his efforts and his involvement in this. This is great for the community. Everything that is good for our environment is always a plus. I'm happy to know that we're going to have a supercharged station at City Hall. My mom won't have very far to go when charging her vehicle. So, but thank you all for this, and I look forward to seeing them pop up around town.
Thank you, Councilman. I think my question is, and just this is kind of getting into the weeds on it. In there, it talks about BG&E will maintain it for about 5 years, the charging station. I'm not as versed on what that might look like. Can you give me some idea of what might be charges later after the first 5 years?
I asked the same question of BG&E to explain to us what happens after 5 years. I mean, did they just disappear? What happens? And basically the only thing they were able to tell me is that we might have to renegotiate the maintenance agreement with them, but that's it, because they will have the maintenance for 5 years. And so after that, I was like, and what does that maintenance agreement then will look like? And they themselves have no idea what that would look like.
Okay. So that means we got 5 years to work that out if we approve this,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions at this time or any other comment?
Yeah, just want to give a point of clarification to Councilman.
Please, go ahead.
Piece, just based off of how the resolution is written, and I'm looking specifically for his feedback. I feel like your directive to staff is enough. I'm not sure if there needs to be an amendment because of how it reads, right? Maintaining at least a level 2 charge and at 2 DC fast chargers on city property. I think the directive to staff of doing 1 and 1. Especially how BG&E likes to do installing these on public service. I'm not sure if there needs to be an amendment exactly. But we'll entertain one, of course.
That's fine by me. The only concern I have is that the attachments have an inconsistency between what's in the resolution. I'm fine with what's in the resolution. It's the attachments have both fast chargers at the City Hall. Right. That's all.
Okay, so City Clerk, I think we just need to make a note on the attachment and don't need to change the actual verbiage in the document.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any action we need to take at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution R-57-20.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, before we go, I assume that there have been no agreements made yet, Mayor Pro Tem, between us and BG&E on your part?
No.
Okay, so, what I'm asking is, so therefore, whatever the resolution is contingent on what we're able to negotiate with BG&E. So.
Yeah, the resolution is pretty open-ended in terms of Councilman Wolfley's initial concern about where chargers go. It kind of gives us that discretion, putting them into places if that's what you're referring to.
Okay, having heard the motion and a second, are there any further discussions? We heard from the city manager. Anyone else comments at this time? If not, it's been moved and properly second. Call for the vote. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Opposed, the same favor? Hearing none, the motion carries. At this point, before we move to adjourn, as that being the last item on the current adjustment, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege here and make a point that the MOU between Reed Early Learning Center and the Prince George's County Public School System has been reached, and they are taking applications at this time. I would ask if we could for the residents of the city that we push forward and inform them of how the process goes. And I would like the support of the council to be able to have the city communications pass that information on to the residents of Bowie. And I'm asking, I guess I'd like to make a motion to be able to have communications pass that information on.
Second. I'm sorry, what is this for? This wasn't brought to us previously.
No, it wasn't. They just signed the memorandum of understanding, and they're starting to move forward on taking applications. And I just want the residents of Bowie to be in a position of just knowing where to go and to seek their application.
How many seats are available for Bowie citizens or Bowie's residents?
There are 20 seats available in all. And how that turns out, remember, that's dependent upon a lot of factors, and that's the information that will be online for them to go in and residents to go in and look at.
And how come this wasn't brought to us earlier before you move forward with it?
As in how I move forward with what? Asking that the residents?
No, with this program. This is the first time we're hearing about it.
Oh no, I think we've passed that out before, and I had sent everyone a notice on it, and this is something that's it's a program.
It was never brought up in a meeting. So
no, because it was actually, because it's a program between the Maryland Department of Education and the Prince George's County school system. So that's who the people who have done it, and Reed Temple has a grant they won. So I just want to make sure that our citizens apply and have an opportunity to get those seats as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Quick question, if I may. Are the seats at the, is there a rate? Are they free, or are they, how are they different?
This is free. This is free.
Free to the, to all the applicants?
To the applicants that go. That's why the grant money is coming from the state. The state is paying for this. Okay, so if we could, I would like to, I guess maybe from my understanding, we need to have a vote to have the communications be able to share with the residents of how to apply for these seats. So I move that we have the communications department move forward with sharing that information with the residents of Bowie.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor with an aye? Aye.
Mr. Mayor, can we call vote?
What's that? Okay, let's have a, poll vote, please.
Mayor Adams,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison,
Hey, Madam City Clerk, it looks like she dropped off.
yeah, okay. Councilmember Gardner, Councilmember Gardner,
Can you hear me?
yes,
Can you hear me?
yep.
I feel like I'm 95 years old today, everyone. Forgive me, okay? I am better with technology. Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Steph,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolfley,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Boffo,
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebumadu,
Aye.
and I just got a message from Councilmember Harrison. She has lost her internet connection on her laptop, but her vote is an aye.
Okay.
So that makes a unanimous vote, 7-0.
And motion carries. City Manager, could you make sure that...
I heard it. Thank you, sir. I got it.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
I said, thank you, sir. I understand the vote, and we'll send it out tomorrow.
Sounds good, thank you. All right,
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
it's been moved and properly
Third.
seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Please stay safe.
Have a
And I
great day.
Look forward to talking with you again soon. Have a good night. And again, to staff, city clerk, and all of the staff, all of you, thank you so much for all your support and for all you've done. And to all of our council members, thank you again for your time and efforts, as well as to our citizens, who are the most important thing in this city. Take care and good night, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. Good night.